Okay, so this tier list is going to be based off of basically like correct play from killer, right? We're going to assume that the killer is very, very skilled with their killer, like very, very solid, like not like necessarily the best in the world or whatever, but I'm going to assume that you're very skilled and good at your killer. Like we'll assume that the person controlling the killer is like a main of the killer, you know, like a Billy main, a Huntress main, right? Like they are good enough that they know a lot of the ins and outs, and they're not like new to the killer, and they know and they can play them very, very solidly, and they might make some mistakes here and there, but very few, right? But we're also going to assume that the survivors are also very, very knowledgeable and experienced and know how to loop, and they also know the ins and outs of the killer, right? Now, keep in mind, that's not what you're going to run into most of the time. Like, if you're queuing up for a game, you're really not, like, especially with some of the more obscure killers, like Skull Martin's a good example, Hag's a good example. There's a lot of killers where, like, realistically, if you're queuing up for a game, even at the highest MMR, it's not very likely that you're going to run into a full squad of people that are A, good at looping, and B, really, really know all the ins and outs of the killers and know how to counterplay them. That's just not super common in DBD, unfortunately. But on the off chance you do run into a squad that is like that, it's going to be ranked based off of that. Also, the add-ons, like in terms of like add-ons, we're going to be ranking it based off of just like average add-on use, right? Like, for instance, if a killer has like an ultra rare add-on that significantly changes their play, like honestly, even Trapper kind of does with like his ultra rares. But there's some other killers that are like that too, right? That have like significantly strong add-ons that are like ultra rare. If there's a killer that has add-ons like that, we're going to assume that like we'll just assume that this is like 10 matches of a killer, and then like your average result out of those 10 matches, where like sometimes it'll be like really good add-ons and sometimes it won't be, right? Like we're not going to assume every Billy game is engravings. We'll say like 2 out of 10 games are engravings, maybe 8 out of 10 are other add-ons. Same thing with every other killer. Like it's going to be like an average in terms of add-ons, in terms of how we're judging them. I should probably, I maybe want to make it clear what each tier means, right? Like S tier, okay, let me just spitball this. S tier are killers where they are so strong that it's on the killer to mess up, and if the killer doesn't mess up, they dominate the match, and they're like in control, right? Like S tier killers are in control of the game. These are obviously like your killers like Nurse, right? Or like Billy is like that now ever since his buff, right? Where like if you're playing really, really well and you're not messing up, you're basically in control, and the survivors need to get you to mess up, right? Not the other way around. Those are S tier killers. A-tier killers are killers that are kind of like that, but they have a lot more reasonable counterplay to the point where, like, if survivors are very, very good and very strong, they can definitely shut down your power, but it's extremely difficult, right? Like, the survivors still need to mess up against A-tier killers, but messing up against an A-tier killer might be, like, something super small, right? Like, it's not like a mess up, like, you run into a wall and then you stop moving for 2 seconds to get hit. Like, messing up against an A-tier killer might just be, like, not knowing this really in-depth counterplay that is like not everybody knows about, so you don't do it and you don't get away from the killer, right? We'll talk more about that whenever we actually put killers in A tier. But basically, A tier killers are killers that do have counterplay, but their counterplay is extremely hard. And also, if you don't, or it's killers where if you don't counterplay them correctly, they snowball like crazy and can end the game in like 2 seconds. It's basically killers that punish mistakes extremely hard, or have counterplay that's very difficult to pull off. One or the other. That's A tier killers. But perfect survivor play against A-tier killers should do very well against them, right? They're not like the A-tier killers are not in control the way S-tier killers are. B-tier are like middle of the road killers. They're very, very strong, right? Like they're still strong, they're still good, they're still able to pull off wins most of the time, but their counterplay is just a little bit easier than A-tiers, right? Like it's a lot more like quote unquote fair, I guess, on both sides, right? Like outplaying them doesn't require this like PhD in DBD, and also if you happen to like not outplay them, it's not like the game just ends instantly like it does on some killers, right? Like they're not like super snowbally, and also their counterplay isn't like super crazy, but they still have a lot of power and they have a lot of strength, and a good killer player controlling them can still definitely dominate games very, very often. But it's a lot more of like a fair matchup as opposed to like a killer sided matchup like the S and A tiers. C tier are killers that kind of go below that. This is where you're getting into the category of the survivors are more in control, right? Like I think once you get down to the C tier killers, you're kind of trying to get the survivors to mess up, right? Like if the survivors don't mess up, you're in trouble. Like you're in trouble. Your whole goal as a killer in C tier is to get the survivors to do something dumb, capitalize on that, and then try to keep that going, and hopefully have it happen multiple times. Like even just once isn't enough. Like you need them to mess up a lot. But again, if you're good enough at killer, you'll be able to bait that a lot. And bad players will still die to C tier killers all the time, especially if you're a good C tier killer. But if you're playing a C tier killer and you get actual like really, really good survivors, you're probably fucked because you really need them to make mistakes. And then D tier killers are the worst of the worst. These are ones where it's like a more extreme version of C tier, where essentially you need the survivors to fuck up, and if they don't, you just flat out lose badly. Like you lose very, very badly. Like there's not even that much hope. Like you really need like multiple mistakes, and even if like a few decently sized mistakes happen, they can still bring it back, right? Like it's like that level. Like you're very, very weak. So those are the 5 tiers, right? That's how we're judging them. Trapper. You know what's funny? Trapper actually got buffed a while back with like the extra traps, and I still think he's a little bit more of a threat than like he used to be. Like 10 traps is a lot. Like 10 traps is a lot. But however, I think survivors that know what they're doing here can really, like, first off, if you don't have eerie stone, the one that makes your traps reset themselves, essentially any survivor, even one single survivor, like it doesn't even take a whole team, one single survivor that knows what they're doing can basically follow you around and disarm all your traps as you place them and basically force you to chase them, right? Like all it takes is one aggressive survivor following you around and disarming every trap you set to basically turn you into a powerless killer. Because if you stop the trap, then they'll run away, you know, and then they'll go and then they'll go like disarm it later. Or if you chase them, then they're just gonna run away from the traps and go like somewhere else where you don't have traps down. So it's very easy to just shut down Trapper's power, I guess, with just one aggressive survivor. Again, with the exception of the Ultra Rare add-on, which I'm not gonna assume you have that every single game, right? Even with the Ultra Rare add-on, it's still not like super reliable, right? You can still get your traps disarmed. Survivors can still just path away from grass and places that traps might normally be, and kind of use just like distance and health states as kind of like resources rather than pallets. And like definitely good survivors will make your life miserable. Trapper is definitely a pretty weak killer. Is he so weak that we put him in D tier? Yes, he is. Yeah. You know, he is. You know what? Yeah. He's definitely D tier material. He's definitely not good enough to be anything above D tier. Wraith. Okay, we actually just talked about this. I know that. Okay, I might record this to YouTube, but like I'm doing this live, and earlier on stream I just talked about Wraith being a bit underrated. Wraith is actually, I would say, B tier. Wraith feels actually very, very strong if you know how to use him correctly. Like if you're a good Wraith player, he's a threat, dude. He's a threat. Like you have to be so careful with your positioning, like where you loop, how you loop. Like he's one of the only killers where you can't hold distance, right? Like pretty much the main counterplay to like 99% of the killer roster is just getting a bunch of distance and then holding that distance and making them have to run after you to catch up, which takes a really long time and yada yada yada. Wraith is one of the only killers where you can't really just hold distance because he can just go cloak, fly up past you, like, right, especially if you have Windstorm, and he's a constant threat, right? That being said, if you're good at looping and if you're really, really good at also outplaying the like little cloak mind games that he goes for, right? Things like trying to run out ahead of you with Windstorm and body block pallets or windows, or things like, you know, like cloaking and trying to use the speed booster on a pallet to like bait you into leaving or something, right? If you're really, really good at playing around his mind games, you definitely can take Wraith on long chases and kind of make him struggle. But also, it's tough, right? And on top of that, Wraith also forces a lot of like macro play from the survivors, right? Like you really have to like stay healthy. Like being injured against Wraith is so deadly. So survivors kind of need to stay healthy, which also makes them play more careful, right? Like if you get a bunch of hits with Wraith, really ideally gens should slow down a lot because survivors should have to go heal. And again, if they're smart, they'll heal in safe areas. So even if you interrupt it, they'll probably still be okay. But again, that takes time, right? Like if you're playing smart against Wraith and you're taking the time to heal each time you get hit, but you're also healing in a strong area of the map, that's a big time commitment, right? You got to find a teammate. You got to get you and that teammate have to go somewhere safe to heal, get the heal off, then go back to the gens. Like it's a big time commitment. It's a big time commitment to play safe against Wraith, and he definitely can punish mistakes very well. And honestly, I think Wraith is probably going to be at the very top of B tier. I think he's actually very much stronger than people give him credit for, and he can be absolutely deadly. I think a good Wraith is insane in like your average matches, right? Like again, if this was like an average, if this was like really good killer player versus average survivors, he would probably be like A tier, maybe even S tier. Like good Wraiths are so deadly with your average survivors because most people don't really know all the ins and outs of Wraith. Like he's actually very, very good. But again, if you get survivors that do know the ins and outs of him, he's probably about B tier, right? Like he still has a lot of threat level, but it's pretty it's a pretty fair matchup. The survivors can definitely do a lot themselves to keep it from getting out of control. Okay, Billy's up next. He's actually S tier. Billy is, this might be a bit of an early hot take. Or sorry, well, it's an early take, but it's also a hot take. But Billy's the #1 killer in the game right now. I feel pretty confidently about that. Billy is super nuts right now. Like, he gets overdrive pretty quickly. When he's in overdrive, he has that extra curve window. Like, they basically, when they buffed Billy, they got rid of overheat. They added overdrive, which gives him this powered up version of Billy where he has like less cooldown. He has faster charge speed. He has way faster run speed. And on top of that, they also buffed his curve window from 3/4 of a second to a full second. So they added, it was like a 33% buff, right? Because they added 0.25 to a 0.75 cooldown. So, or to a 0.75 thing. So yeah, it was a huge buff. And with that extra curve window, Billy is able to do so much wild shit. Like, especially with the speed. Like, you can literally travel like 10 meters and then still have some curve window open, right? So, like, literally, even if you're like 10 meters away from the Billy and around a corner, he can literally chainsaw 10 meters in your direction and then still turn sharply and get you. Like, it's crazy the amount of things he can do because of that extra curve window. It's nuts. And he's also like a very high skill ceiling killer, right? I think maybe, I have a theory that people that don't think Billy is the best killer in the game haven't seen the best Billies in the world play, or haven't gone against them, maybe, because bro, it's insane. And on top of that, like, don't get me wrong, like if he messes up a bit and the survivors get ahead, he can definitely be beaten. It's not like he can't be beaten, but he is definitely the killer that can literally take a game from like 0 to 100 like instantly. Like, I don't know if there's any killer in the game at this point that can do it. Like, Oni's got to be close maybe, but like Billy, like, literally all it takes is one little fuck up, one person to eat a chainsaw at a bad time, and an ability that actually is playing well and smart can instantly end the game at any point in time. Like, it's nuts. He is so strong right now. And what's funny is I don't really think he's even like overpowered. I think honestly, like, that extra curve window I think is a little bit of a problem. That, and maybe like his cooldown is a little bit of a problem, because his cooldown is really strong too. Like, he just has so many options in chase. Like, when you're getting chased by Billy, it's like you got to worry about him doing some crazy ass curve and one-shotting you. But if you're looking out for that, then you also got to worry about him maybe just breaking the pallet that you're sitting at and then zoning you and then catching you off before you can go anywhere else. So you got to like try to position like a, you know, like a baseball player stealing a base to try to get to the next pallet, right? But then if you do that and he goes for the curve, then sometimes you get out of the curve, or sometimes he'll just chainsaw around the corner and then body block the pallet with his low cooldown and down. Like, there's just so many things he can do to kill you. And it's like, as a survivor, you have to predict which one of the 10 things he's going to do. And if you don't predict right, then you're just dead. It's super brutal, man. He's so strong. People that really know how to use his chainsaw are going to just be insanely deadly. I think he's the best killer in the game right now. That being said, we're going to Nurse, who I think Nurse is probably who most people would consider the best killer in the game right now. Like, I'm sure if you ask like 100 DBD players who the best killer in the game is, I bet more people would probably say Nurse than Billy. But I feel very firmly that Billy's number one. But that being said, I would put Nurse at number 2. Nurse is insane. She's always been insane. Like, ever since her addition to the game in 2016, she's fucking nuts. She blinks through walls. She literally circumvents all of the basic gameplay of the game, right? Like, pallets and windows and all the normal gameplay that you're supposed to have around killer just goes out the window with Nurse, right? Like, it's like a whole different video game with Nurse, because you're not really playing around resources. You're playing around just like solid objects on the map and line of sight and like line of sight blockers, right? The one thing that like, so okay, like, if you wanted to compare these two killers, and the reason why I put Billy above Nurse, the big reason is Nurse can get downs more consistently than Billy, right? Like, Billy can be ran by a survivor in theory. Like, if the survivor is predicting correctly and if they're like kind of winning 50-50s, you can get a decent chase against Billy, right? Again, the better the Billy player, the harder that is to do, but it is at least possible. A really good Nurse player will not be ran. They will not be ran. You can maybe like force them to use one safety blink and then go into cooldown to get close enough to get a guaranteed blink to like buy an extra, like, you can sometimes buy an extra like 5 seconds through like good play by like forcing a safety blink and then, you know, then making them have to go to like their next set of blinks or whatever to get the hit. But like, a good Nurse will get the hit and they will get the down, and you're not going to take a good Nurse on a chase longer than like 30 or 40 seconds ever. Like, it's just not going to happen. Like, a good Nurse will consistently get the downs quickly. But the problem is that Nurse doesn't have anywhere near the mobility that Billy has. Like, Nurse actually has kind of bad mobility, like, outside of like vertical mobility, right? Like, obviously she's able to go through walls and she's able to go up and down floors. But if you're talking like from one side of the map to the other, like, for instance, if you were doing like a race from like, I don't know, one side of Azrael's resting place to the other side, like a really long straightaway, Nurse actually, I'm pretty sure I saw someone do the math on it, and I think Nurse is actually on like around the same. I think they actually might have been a little bit slower than like a 4.6 killer, actually, like in just a straight line. Obviously, like, being able to go through walls makes that a little bit more complicated, right? Because like, if a survivor cuts a corner, you can kind of like straight line it as opposed to having to go around the corner like other killers, you know what I mean? So like the going through walls thing does add mobility. It's kind of hard to quantify, but it adds mobility. But like in terms of like straight line mobility, like if you're on one side of the map and you need to get to the other side of the map, Nurse is really not that mobile. So that's like her main weakness. I think survivors that have really, really, really good macro play, like I'm talking really good, like you need to be really on top of your game with macro. Like you need to be stealthing at the perfect times. You need to not get found. You need to have people in like the right positions at all the times, doing the right gens, dying in the right places. If you have all that stuff going for you, then Nurse, I think Billy can win a lot more matches than Nurse if survivors are playing like that, right? Again, Nurse is just more consistent at getting the downs is the only thing. But Billy can do it like slightly less consistent, but his mobility just makes up for it. He's so nuts with his mobility. So yeah, Nurse, still insane. A good Nurse player is still going to be winning the vast majority of their games. And again, all it takes against Nurse is one like minor misposition. And when I say misposition, it's even like not even misposition. Like even if like if the Nurse player just finds like a stealthing survivor at the right moment, like it's just over, right? Like, that's all it takes for Nurse. Like it's insane. Like you can snowball a game so quickly as Nurse. Not even through like a mistake from the survivors even, right? I wouldn't even say a mistake, but like just one thing going wrong for survivors and Nurse just instantly ends game. So yeah, she's absolutely insane. Like she's very, very strong. Just a little bit less good than Billy. Myers is unfortunately not that great. Myers has a really, really, really big downside. I honestly, like, if there was ever a change I would do to Myers, it would probably be this downside that I'm about to say. Myers has a really unfortunate downside of having a weak early game. Like, early game is so important as killer. And having, like, a slow early game is so rough, dude. It's so rough. Especially if you don't have, like, something like an Oni mid-late game to make up for it. Like, Myers is mid to late game. Like once Myers gets going, like, for instance, Oni, again, I haven't gotten to Oni yet, so bear with me. I'm sorry that I'm bringing him up so much. But, like, for example, when Oni gets going, he gets going, bro, you know? But, like, when Myers gets going, it's like, okay, you have one-shot downs, you have faster vaults, and, like, a slightly longer lunge. That's really it. It's not that big of a deal, right? Obviously, there's things like tombstones and stuff as well, right? There is things like that here and there, but not really the end of the world, right? And even tombstones can be played around. Like if the survivors suspect that you might have a tombstone, they can just hop in locker and kind of force that as well. So even that is not like super reliable, right? I mean, because of the tombstones and because of some of the add-ons he does become a little bit stronger, but I still think because of the slow early game, again, survivors that are really good at like denying stock and really good at making you suffer through that early game and making you struggle are going to make your life miserable, dude. And then again, even once you get powered up, he's still loopable, right? Even a tier 3 Myers is not like a guaranteed down by any means. If you're a tier 3 Myers and you're chasing a survivor in even like a remotely decent area of the map, you're probably just going to get looped like forever, you know? Like there's nothing really that strong about his kit that makes him a super big threat. I will say he actually does get a little bit of extra strength around unhook scenarios because the ability to like 99% your stock or even have your stock at like 80% or something, right? And then like kind of stay near a hook means that anybody going for that unhook might just go down before they even get the unhook. And then that just can snowball like crazy. So like unhook play can definitely be kind of scary against Myers, but that's not really enough to like boost them up high, right? On the tier list. Like again, smart survivors aren't just going to dive bomb a hook right in front of a Myers that might have, you know, tier 3 almost ready. Like that's just not something that smart survivors are going to do, right? Like if that's how you're killing survivors, I don't think that makes you a strong killer. That just makes those survivors dumb. So I think he goes in D tier. I think he's a little bit above Trapper at least because I do think that unhook play is at least threatening. I think he has some like versatility with like his builds he could run. Like you can do some interesting things with him. I think his add-ons, right? Like his add-ons are kind of wild and can do some pretty crazy things that might give him a chance of popping off a little bit more than Trapper. But I don't think he's even good enough for C tier. Like realistically speaking, if you're going against good survivors as Myers, you shouldn't be having a very good time. You should be having a very, very bad time. You should be struggling very, very hard. Okay, this might be the hottest of hot takes. But Hag is at the very bottom. I firmly believe that Hag is the literal worst killer in the game if the survivors are good. I should say that this is not Chag, though. This is like normal teleporting Hag, not Chag. Chag is actually probably like C tier. But like, if we're talking not Chag, because Chag is so different. Like, Chag is very, very different than normal play. But she's really bad. Like, survivors that know what they're doing, that are like even remotely organized and kind of understand Hag's play. Because okay, let me try to explain this. Okay, the way Hag plays, the way pretty much every Hag plays, and the way you basically have to play Hag is that you set up like a web of traps, right? You spawn up, you find like a good area of the map that has like a bunch of gens, right? Maybe 3 or 4 gens in an area. You set up like this big web of traps all around that area, right? So anybody that ventures into that area has to deal with all these traps where it's basically like a free hit if they step in it, right? But that being said, if survivors are aware of that and they know what they're doing, they're gonna not go anywhere near that web if they're injured, right? They're only gonna go near it if they're full health. And B, even when they do go near it, they're gonna be like looking out for traps, possibly wiping them away, which you can do now, right? You don't even need flashlights anymore. You can just wipe them away. They're gonna wipe away traps, or they're gonna sneak in and do gens, and they're only gonna do it while full health. And if they ever get injured, they're gonna bolt away from all the traps, away across the map, and stay there until they get healed. And at that point as Hag, there's not really much you can do. If you commit to a survivor across the map away from your traps, then you have no power, right? You have no power and you're a 4.4 killer. You can't catch them, right? Or if you want to commit to them until you catch them anyway through like Bloodlust or whatever, you're going to lose your gens probably for it. So like, it's just not really worth it. And if you go back and keep trying to defend, eventually, like, it's a war of attrition that you're gonna lose. Like, you're eventually gonna lose that war of attrition, right? Like, it's just not... She's not really reasonable to play against good players. Like, it's just not really reasonable. It's just not really gonna happen. Like, she's strange, because I feel like I talked about this before. S-tier killers are killers where the survivors are trying to get the killer to mess up, and they, like, need the killer to mess up to get by or whatever. It's funny because Hag is maybe the only killer on this entire list. Well, I shouldn't say... I think she's the killer on the list that I think the most requires survivor mess ups, right? Like, in theory, if the survivors just don't mess up at all, then the Hag in theory might get nothing. Like, you might end up with literally like 0 hooks, right? Like, I feel like Hag is fully reliant on the survivors messing up. If the survivors just are aware and play around your traps well, you literally are just a 4.4 killer. Like, you're like the weakest killer that you could ever possibly be, right? Again, the thing that's weird about Hag, though, is that the amount of people that know how to play against Hag, again, are not that... It's not that much, right? Like, it doesn't even need to be a Swift, right? I know every time people talk about this, they're always like, oh, yeah, against a survivor with friends, she's bad. But if it's a solo queue, no. It's not even that even, right? Even 4 solo queue players that just know what they're doing can shit on a Hag, right? Because, again, it's not like this is hard counterplay. Like, we'll get into some killers later that actually do have, like, very in-depth counterplay that, like, if you're not in comms becomes very hard, like twins, right? But, like, Hag is not one of them. Hag's counterplay is super simple. It's super simple. It's not hard at all. 4 good solo queue players could absolutely pull it off even without communicating. It's just that I feel like the amount of people that know about it and really, like, understand the matchup are not that... It's just not... There's just not that many people, right? Like, your average group of survivors is going to have... Because, again, one thing that makes Hag... It's weird. Because, again, if we were doing a tier list based on your average game, she would literally be an S tier. Because all it takes with Hag is, like, one person fucking up, right? Like, if you're solo queuing and you have 3 good teammates and you have one fucking doofy Meg Thomas player that, like, runs into the web of traps while injured, gets downed, gets put on hook, like, deep in the back of the map, and then, like, you have to trudge through, like fucking 10 traps to get to her hook, and it's also near all these gens, so, like, you can't finish the gens because, you know, they're within the traps, but you also can't get the unhook because they're within the traps. Then suddenly you're fucked, right? It's like, okay, you either have to just let Meg die, or you gotta, like, maybe kill yourself trying to save her. And even if she dies, then it becomes a 3v1, which becomes infinitely harder, right? Like, Hag is a weird killer because one person fucking up can snowball the game really well in her favor. But again, I have to put her at the bottom because really the fuck-ups, like I think fucking up like that against Hag should not happen if the survivors are even remotely decent against Hag, right? Like, again, like, I know I said that, like, killers that, you know, will snowball in one mess up will be, like, A tier, but, like, again, you shouldn't be messing up against Hag. You really shouldn't. Like, if a survivor's messing up against Hag, then they're not a good survivor, and I don't think that really counts towards this list. You know what I mean? That being said, there is a lot of not good survivors in this game. So again, if you're talking about your average games, like, if you're somebody that plays Hag and you, like, win 99% of your games, trust me, I believe you. I'm sure you probably do. Because honestly, it probably is like 99% of games that you have at least one player that doesn't know how to play against Hag. So, you know, you get my point. Either way, Hag is the bottom of the list, though. If survivors know what they're doing, she can't do anything. She's very, very bad. Up next is Doctor. Doctor's an interesting one because Doctor's got a bit in his kit, right? I'm pretty confident that he's C tier because Doctor is able to force hits pretty well, right? Like, he forces out hits pretty well by, like, shocking and, like, denying, right? Like, especially with, like, discipline and everything, with discipline add-ons. But even without discipline add-ons now, they, like, made that kind of base kit, right? And he's really, really good at, like, shocking and, like, denying pallet use and everything. But that being said, survivors that actually understand his power and know how to path around it will basically path in a way where they will make it take as long as possible to get a hit. So even if you can, like, guarantee the hit, the hit might be guaranteed after like 50, 55, 60 seconds, right? Which is a long time. You know what I mean? Like if each hit you do takes 50 seconds, that's like a minute and a half chase. That's like 3 gens done right there, right? That's enough time for 3 different survivors to finish 3 different gens. So like, you know, obviously the survivors can mess up and die a little bit quicker if you catch them off guard, but realistically, if they're just good at pathing and they understand doctor counterplay, it's very tough. And that doesn't even really get into things like body blocking, right? Like if you see really good teams play, they can even like send in body blockers at the right moment. Like one of the most devastating things about doctor, and you'll see this in like comp play a lot, right? Which I know this isn't about comp, but like even good Swifts can do this, right? Where like you're sitting there shocking and you're denying everything, and the survivor keeps running because every time you shock, you slow down a little bit, right? So you shock to like deny a pallet or a window, but you slow down a little bit when you shock, like not as much as a survivor. Like you gain a little bit of distance, but you slow down a little bit. So they'll like avoid the window or pallet and keep running, and they'll loop something else, and you shock them again to deny it. They keep going. Every time you shock, you're giving up distance, right? And you're making the chase take a little bit longer. And it's so tragic because sometimes doctors will sit there and they'll shock like 5, 6, 7, 8 times, and then finally they finally break enough distance where they're about to get the hit, and then a survivor body block comes in, right? And then they take the hit for the person, and then it's like you're back at square one, right? The person you're chasing gets a bunch of distance. The guy you hit runs away with distance, and then it's like now you're back at square one of having to chase them down with distance again, right? It's rough. It's really rough. But the one thing Doctor does have, and again, that might sound like just based off that, you might think, okay, so he's D tier, right? Because it sounds not great, but he is good at forcing hits. There is certain places on maps that are significantly stronger than others, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like if you're in an area of the map where there's a lot of things tied together, then you can run Doctor for a while. But if you're in like kind of an isolated area of the map, Doctor is honestly, he can shut things down like that a lot, right? Like it's very dependent on where you are in the map, position wise. And also he has a lot of free tracking, right? Like his free tracking tools are actually kind of nuts. Like static blasting to make people scream, the hallucinations that pop up and stuff that tell you where people are. Like getting all that free information that you get from his power is actually really useful when the killer player is good and knows how to use it, right? Like if the killer player is bad, it doesn't really mean anything, but if the killer player really knows how to use the information that you get, it can be an incredibly powerful tool. So yeah, like he still forces hits decently, although there is a decent bit of counterplay, and his information's good. He is kind of a killer though, where like I think if you do mess up and you let him get ahead, because of all that free info, he can definitely make it hard to come back, right? Which I think is why he's in C tier and not D tier. Like he's not quite good enough to be B, I don't think. But like, if somehow a doctor does get ahead, which he really shouldn't against good survivors, but if a doctor does get out ahead, he'll then be able to like find you and stuff all the time, right? Between the hallucinations, between the static blast, he's gonna be able to locate people. He's gonna be able to play off the info of what he has to kind of keep his lead going and snowball that lead really well. So yeah, I think because of that he's in C tier. Like he shouldn't get ahead, right? But if he does, he can really be a threat. So yeah, C tier it is. C tier it is. Yeah, you could also say he kind of has like minor slowdown with snapping out of it too, although that's not really that big of a deal. Huntress. Oh, Huntress is an unfortunate one because I feel like Huntress is one of those killers where, again, like in your average matches, I feel like she's probably like A tier, maybe even borderline S tier. Like, I think Huntress has like one of the best snowball potentials in the game, you know? Like 7 hatchets that come out rapid fire with like very little cooldown, they have like infinite range. Right? In theory, if the survivors are not playing correctly, you can just be like hatchet, right? Like you can pop off with Huntress in theory, right? When survivors aren't playing well. But the thing about Huntress, and I think a lot of people don't realize this too, is that Huntress actually does have a lot of counterplay and chase. Like if you know what you're doing, and as long as you're at the right areas, like if you're at like an area that, if you're playing like a high wall tile, right? Like any kind of a maze tile, like a jungle gym, like some kind of a main building area, anything like that. Or even just like one of those filler tiles that's like a rock, right? Like one of those like rock filler tiles that's really tall that you can't throw over, right? Basically anything you can't throw over top of is Huntress. And she becomes not great, you know? You kind of have to like run them down. You got to like force a weird 50-50 at the pallet and hope that you win it. And it's not super easy to win it. Even like mid-range hatchets are kind of a gamble on whether you land them or not, right? Like, you know, you got to predict a little bit. It's definitely not like super free. And survivors that really know how to counterplay Huntress make it hard. They make it really hard. Like her chase is actually not that good, all things considered, which is unfortunate because that's her main power, right? Like her design is to kill her. FYI, I'm putting her in B tier, by the way. But like the way that she's designed is basically she's really slow, right? She's 4.4, right? Which is like the slowest move speed almost you know, don't get technical on me. I know that there's certain situations that's slower, but she's pretty much like the slow killer move speed. On top of that, she also has to stop and reload her power at lockers, which is like another slowdown in itself. So she's like one of the most immobile killers in the whole game, right? Like by far. But like what gets made up for that is her like chase power, right? That's supposed to be what kind of makes up for that like, you know, severe downside of mobility. But her chase just doesn't quite cut it. You know, like it's good. Again, it's good. It's solid. If the survivor messes up, you can definitely like get a lot of hits quickly. But at the end of the day, survivors that know what they're doing will definitely make life hard. And like realistically, you shouldn't be able to get downs incredibly fast against good players, right? Like again, I know I keep saying this, and I know I'm probably annoying people by using this like anecdote all the time. I'm sorry, but again, if you look at like competitive play or whatever, typically like Huntresses will take like 3 gens before they get it down. Like it usually takes a while to get it down. And if you get it down like before like 1 or 2 gens pop, it's like really, really crazy and really strong of an area to be, because that's typically not how it goes. Like people that know how to play against Huntress will make it very hard. Again, that being said, just like Hag, if we were talking about your average survivors that don't really know perfect counterplay and don't really know their way around killers, she's probably like A, maybe even S tier, because again, when survivors are fucking up, she snowballs, bro. Like if the survivors do mess up and eat like 2 or 3 hatches that they shouldn't eat, suddenly you have like multiple people injured. You maybe have a down, you may have a hook, a bunch of people injured. You can like threaten gens across the map by like throwing cross maps at them, right? Like you have all this pressure once you get going, but getting going should be really hard. Like it really shouldn't happen against good players very easily. Because again, like there is like that cross map threat too that, you know, like needs to be talked about. But again, the cross map threat only matters when there's already pressure. Like if you're just trying to threaten cross map and that's it, without having survivors on hook or downed or whatever, then like you're just doing nothing, you know? Like I don't know. Like she really needs to get going to really be a threat, and she really should struggle to get going. So yeah, B tier it is. She's like B tier, a little bit below Wraith in my opinion. Bubba just got buffed. Ooh, this is an interesting one. Ooh, where do I put Bubba? They buffed Bubba recently, and I don't know. So if you guys haven't played Buff Bubba, by the way, they made it so his collision is like way less collidey, I guess is the way to word it. Essentially, like you can literally be chainsawing, and you can be like, as long as you're like parallel, like if you're facing parallel to a wall, you could be strafing into the wall. Like if you're like looking down the side of a wall, you can be like strafing into it, and you won't collide. Like literally to collide with a wall now, you have to actually have your camera pointed at the wall. Kind of like with like Billy or Blight or whatever, right? It's really strange. So like, assuming you know that as Bubba, you can hug corners really, really tight while chainsawing. As long as you don't pan your camera towards the wall, you won't collide. It's fucking crazy. It's actually kind of nuts, honestly. And he's a lot bigger of a threat than I think people realize right now. That being said, it's tough because I feel like survivors that know what they're doing will probably just go to that kind of playstyle where they're sacrificing every pallet. Like it's a weird thing because I feel like Bubba, if you're a good Bubba, I almost feel like it comes down to this like race against the clock, which I know every DBD game is technically a race against the clock. You know what I mean? But like, I feel like if you have, especially if you have like Bamboozle, right? Like if you put on Bamboozle and you're a good Bubba player, essentially the survivors are essentially either having to just sacrifice every pallet and throw every one and just like let you break it, or they can try to go for stuns, which is kind of risky. But even then, they're probably just gonna, you know, be giving you the pallet to break it every single time. And that being said, Bubba shreds pallets really quickly. Like if you're chainsawing around an object, like after Survivor, and they get to the pallet and throw it, and then you break it, they get very little distance. Like you're pretty much right on their ass, right? And then they basically have to throw the next pallet like almost immediately. And you can break that, go to the next one, rinse and repeat, right? And eventually maybe they'll find like a window to buy them a little bit more time. But essentially, you can get into this loop as Bubba where you're just like eating pallets. You know what I mean? Just like the survivors are having to just throw them just so they don't die, and then you're just consuming them for breakfast, bro. Just eating them everywhere. But that being said, if that happens, as long as the survivors are really efficient on generators, you'll still lose, right? Because at the end of the day, even if you break 20 pallets, but it takes you like 3 minutes to do it, that's 3 minutes. That's like all the gens, right? So like at the end of the day, if you can't force a down, you're still not like, I don't know if I could put him, I don't know if I could justify putting him in an A tier. Because at the end of the day, like if you can't force a down, like I'm talking forcing a down, like if you're still at the mercy of survivors, I can't justify putting him A tier. I can't do it. I do think I'm going to put him above Huntress, which might be kind of crazy, but I think I'm going to do it because I do think it is like tough. Like you do have to like play careful, right? You got to be really careful with distancing because he can like catch up to you really quickly around loops. And also he can eat pallets really quickly. He also like unhooking can be extremely dangerous against him. And you can like, I think you could like mess. Actually, should it be? I don't know about being above Huntress. You know, I'm actually like rethinking it more and more now. But I think he's a lot more of a threat than people were realizing. I think he could definitely be very, very dangerous. And I think think this is fine. I think this is actually fine because I think there's also like the threat of M1ing too. Like you don't even have to chainsaw, right? You could still like M1 as well. I honestly I think Bubba goes here. This might be. I will admit this might be a little bit of an overreach. Like maybe I'm overreacting to the buffs. I'm not sure. Like I might need some more time to really solidify this. But fuck it, man. It's a tier list. Who cares? I'm doing it for the clicks anyway. You know, fuck it. It's fine. B tier. But there is a chance. Honestly, there's a chance that he might be like C tier. Honestly, there might be a chance he's actually like here. Like this might be where he actually belongs. But I'm gonna put him in B tier anyway. Fuck it. I don't care. I think he's better than people realize. I think he's honestly like pretty solid. I think the ability to like almost never collide is kind of insane, and I think it gives him a lot of potential to be decently threatening in a lot of snares. Oh man, I don't know. I feel like the way I described him kind of makes him sound like a C tier killer though. But fuck it, I'm putting him B. I'm just gonna do it. I don't care. I'm gonna stop thinking about it. Okay, Freddy. Freddy's up next. Freddy is like he's like got to be the worst killer in the game aside from Hag, right? Poor Freddy, dude. I feel like Freddy is like. I almost feel like Freddy got power creeped, you know? It's kind of funny because I don't think power creep's a thing that happens in DBD a whole lot, typically. Like, I think DBD's actually done a pretty good job of not power creeping on most things. Most things. But I feel like this is one of the ones where it did get power creeped pretty hard. Like, I feel like Freddy's power of, like, teleporting across the map, when it was new, back when it was new, it was crazy because Freddy was like one of the only people that can do it. They were like, oh my god, he can just teleport across the map instantly. That's crazy, right? But now we have like Onryo, we have Dredge, we have like Demo kind of does it, although his is less instant, right? Like I feel like there's so many killers that like do a similar thing now that's like even like Singularity kind of does it, you know? Like, and also on top of that, Freddy's is like the worst one too, right? Because like Freddy's relies on there being a gen, an unfinished gen, which I still find weird. I still think that Freddy should be able to teleport to finish gens. It's weird. As the survivors do more gens, your power becomes weaker and weaker. Like what? Why is that? That's so weird. That's so fucking weird. I hate that. Because yeah, like honestly, once you get to if you get to late game, like if all 5 gens are done, then you literally have no teleport. You literally can't even use your teleport. Like what? It's so wild. It's so weird. So yeah, his teleport is just like a weaker version of other killers' teleport, which is unfortunate. And his snare is kind of the same. Like I feel like his snare almost just feels like a less strong version of like clown bottles or like pinhead chains or like whatever, like insert whatever, you know, killer ability does a similar thing where you slow someone down mid chase or whatever, right? Like it kind of just feels like the lesser version of it. It's still not bad, right? Like snares are not terrible, but they're definitely not super good, right? Like you could definitely punish people for like playing the wrong pallets, but again, survivors that know how to play around snares are going to make it extremely hard to actually use them in any kind of a good way, and they'll probably just path away from you as you're like setting them down and then just make your life miserable. Yeah, it's not great. It's not great, man. Poor Freddy. He struggles a lot. I mean, and also pallets are fun and memey, and like don't get me wrong, pallets can be good when survivors aren't aware. But again, I think if survivors are making it a point to like kind of pay attention to what pallets have been used and which ones aren't, even like roughly, like even if they occasionally throw a fake pallet like once or twice a game, as long as they're paying like loose attention to what pallets are real and what pallets aren't throughout the match, then like fake pallets aren't very good either, right? It's like a very niche ability that kind of like takes advantage of survivors like obliviousness. Wow, that's hard to say. Which realistically isn't going to work against good players. And yeah, poor Freddy, man. He kind of just has nothing going for him. Like his mobility's okay, I guess. Like he has like meh mobility, he has meh chase power, and that's it. His add-ons are all fucking garbage. Like the poor guy has no add-ons worth a fuck. So like, yeah, he's struggling, dude. The poor guy. I'm still gonna put him above Hag though, because he's at least 4.6, right? He's at least 4.6. He at least will chase you with a normal killer speed, and honestly, even just a 4.6 killer, if you're good at killer, can force a hit eventually. Even if it takes a long time, you can still eventually force a hit, right? It's possible. Whereas a 4.4 killer like Hag is like way unreasonable against good players. Like it's just like best of luck. It's almost never gonna happen. So he's at least above Hag, but like just barely. He's struggling, dude. He's kind of struggling. Okay, this might be another hot take. I think Pig is actually C tier. I don't think Pig's in D tier. I think Pig's a lot better than people give her credit for. I think ever since they buffed her dash, especially, she's kind of like, you don't really loop her anymore. Like a lot of palettes that you would normally like run around and loop and like not be afraid of the dash, you kind of have to respect the dash now. And like a lot of times you kind of have to be like a pre-throw Andy against her, you know, kind of like you would against Clown, which is funny because he's up next. So like it's actually interesting. I feel like you really got to respect her Pig dashes now. And on top of that, even if you are just pre-throwing and she's just breaking pallets and chasing you, every time she gets it down, the reverse bear traps are still, right? Like okay, how Pig always worked before is that her dash was like near useless, right? Like there was some instances that it was useful, but it was very few. It was like near useless. But then her bear traps were like this big power that like caused this massive amount of slowdown, right? Like the way it works right now, just for the people that don't know, I'm sure some people do, but the way it works right now is that you have 4 bear traps by default, and it's a guarantee that there will be 12 box searches between all 4. So that's a guarantee no matter what, right? So assuming you get 4 downs throughout the game before the gens pop, you're guaranteeing that the survivors have to take the time to search a box 12 times, which is solid, right? Because that also doesn't even account for like the travel time between boxes, right? Like you got to run to a box, search it, run to another box, search it, run to another box, search it. Like that happens a lot, like, right? Like I feel like getting all 4 bear traps down as Pig literally is like the equivalent of adding like 2 gens to the game. Almost. Like, it's honestly crazy. Well, it's like adding 2 gens that you can't regress, I guess. But I guess it's like 2 gens that you can't regress, but also could instantly kill you if you're not careful. I don't know. That's a weird... I think we're getting into a weird analogy now. It's fine. Either way, you know what I mean? It's a massive slowdown. It's like by miles the biggest slowdown out of any killer power in the game. Like by miles. I don't think second place is even close either. Like it's huge. It's a huge amount of slowdown that gets added. So the fact that she has that huge slowdown, but she also actually has a chase power now that's kind of threatening, means that I think she's honestly decent. Again, I think she's in this tier with Doctor at least. Again, she's not like... I say she's decent. She's still in C tier, right? She's definitely not good. Like, I feel like survivors can still play really safe. They can still just, like, pre-drop pallets a lot of times and play around the pre-drop pallets. They can still make the downs very, very hard to get. But I do think, like, once you get going, you definitely will get more... I think you'll get more going than, like, a Myers or a Trapper or a Freddy would, right? Like, you're probably around that Doctor level of, like, ability to get going, and then once you get going, you're able to, like, actually do something with it. But still not good enough to be... Like, again, she's still just too loopable, and even with her buffed dash, which is obviously like a huge threat still, she's still not, it's not like reliable or good enough to be consistent enough for her to be B tier. Like she's still on the weaker end. And yeah, I still think you need to you basically need to hope the survivors mess up quite a bit, I think, as Pig. So yeah, like lower C tier, but still decently there. I don't know. Clown's a weird one because I don't Clown's actually like honestly not terrible. Like I feel like Clown he's gone through, like, I remember a time in DVD where Clown was like considered one of the worst killers in the game. Like people called him, I think for a long time, people called him the worst killer in the game for a long time. But he's gone through a bunch of changes, right? They made him like, they gave him all these quality of life changes. I say quality of life, but they were really buffs where like he doesn't slow down at all when throwing bottles, which is a pretty big deal. He has more bottles now. There's like all these things that they've done to make him better. And honestly, it kind of feels like it worked. Like I feel like he's actually kind of a threat. In theory, you can kind of like not kick pallets as Clown and get away with it a lot of the times, other than like really strong ones, right? Like obviously like Shaq pallet needs to be kicked, but there's a lot of pallets. Like you'd be surprised if you're really good at placing bottles, and especially if you're running like good add-ons on them, you'd be surprised how often you can get away with just not kicking pallets and just playing a thrown pallet. And that's actually like that's a really powerful tool to have, right? Because again, like one of the most important things for any killer is being able to force damage, right? Like you're gonna find that as this tier list goes up, the killers at the top are the ones that are able to force damage, and the ones at the bottom are the ones that aren't able to force damage. Like that's the most important thing as killer. If you're able to force damage often, you're a good killer, right? So Clown can force damage decently, but like again, it's not the best, right? Like if you have tiles that are tied together, then like that makes it more hard and makes it a bit more complicated, right? Like if you have one of those like fillers next to a jungle gym, next to another filler, so like you bottle something and try to double back, and then the survivor just leaves and goes to like the maze tile. You know, it's hard to like say without showing you an image, but you know what I mean. Like if you can follow what I'm saying, like if you're at like an isolated tile, Clown can basically force hits really, really well, similar to Doctor. But I think he does it faster than Doctor is the thing. Like I think he does it a little bit quicker than Doctor. So actually I think I will put him right above Doctor. I think I'm gonna slip him in right above Doctor. Because yeah, I think he feels similar to Doctor in a lot of ways, where it's like you can kind of force damage, but it takes a little while. And also like the more connected the tiles are, the harder it is to force a damage. But also, like, clowns is more like direct, right? Like with Doctor, it's like you're slowing down and you're denying them. You're slowing down, you're denying them. With Clown, instead of you slowing down, you're slowing them down. You're just like pelting them with bottles and you're slowing them down. And you're like forcing the interaction to happen sooner, right? Instead of like shocking them over and over again and doing like 3 loops before you actually get close enough to do damage. With Clown, you throw a bottle and then like within 1 loop, you're close enough to do damage and they have to like either throw the pallet or, you know, get hit or whatever. Like everything just happens a little bit faster with Clown than Doctor. Obviously he doesn't get the information that Doctor gets, right? Like the info from Doctor makes Doctor really, really good. And Clown doesn't get that info, but I think that chase is more important. Like I think chase power is more important than tracking power. So I do think that like that better chase from Clown than Doctor puts Clown a little bit above Doctor. I don't think Clown's quite good enough. You could maybe make an argument that Clown's good enough for B tier, but I'm not going to make that argument. I'm not going to be the one to make that argument, but I think you could, right? There's probably some Clown mains out there that would probably come in here and yell at me and tell me to put him in B tier, because honestly, maybe, but I'm not going to do it. I think he goes in C tier. I think he's a C tier killer. Okay, Spirit. This one's a weird one too. I think a lot of people don't put Spirit in S tier anymore, and they put her in A tier. And they might be right. I don't, to be honest with you, Spirit's maybe one of the ones that I'm the most unsure on, because Spirit is admittedly one of the killers that I don't think I'm very good at. Like I think I'm like a very like mediocre Spirit at best. Whereas I feel like most killers, I feel like I can play at like a decent level, where I at least understand their high level play really well. Spirit is hard, dude. Like I feel like people that say Spirit is easy I feel like those are the people that queue up and they go against Meg players that just sprint in a straight line and they can very easily just like know exactly where they are. I feel like when survivors are really, really good and they like make it a point to be tricky, right? Like they try to have like they try to have like really unpredictable pathing. They try to like crouch to make themselves quieter. Like you have to be really good at like recognizing the exact like breathing sounds of every survivor and being able to pinpoint where they are. There's like so many little things that go into being a good Spirit. It's hard, dude. It's hard. It's honestly difficult. And on top of that, even with all that, like if you're at like a pallet, right? If you're at like an unthrown pallet, it's still like a 50-50, right? Like if you're phasing up to somebody that's at like a pallet that hasn't been thrown yet, it's kind of a coin flip. Like they're trying to guess what side of the pallet that you're going to appear at, and they're going to try to stun you, and it's still a coin flip once you get there, right? Her power goes on cooldown for a while if you use the whole thing, but if you only use it for a short amount of time, then it kind of recharges only however much you use. So her cooldown's kind of weird. It kind of varies. Like sometimes if you do like a quick phase, her power comes back like immediately. If you do like a longer phase, it takes like up to like what? Like I don't know, like fully I think the full power use is like 18 seconds or something? Or did I just make that up? No. I might have just made that up. But I think like the full, or maybe it's 15. I think the full power use of Spirit, like if you use the whole bar, takes quite a while to come back. But that being said, like obviously you don't have to. It just depends. Mother-daughter ring also got nerfed recently. It's hard, man. I feel like I think I want to put Spirit in S tier still. I think, again, if you want to put a Spirit in A tier, like top of A tier, I don't think I would argue with that. Like I wouldn't say you're wrong. That's what I'll say. Like if you kind of be like, no, Tofu, I think Spirit's A tier, and blah 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 blah. You give me all these reasons. I wouldn't call you wrong. I don't think. Because I don't think that's a crazy... Like, I think she's, like, either very bottom of S or very top of A. It's, like, this weird, like, in-between, I feel like. But I do feel like a really good Spirit feels like they're in control. Like, I do think, like, again, based on how I was judging S tiers, which is basically, like, survivors are kind of they're trying to get the killer to mess up, right? Like, you need the killer to mess up. And if the killer doesn't mess up, you just get completely shit on. I feel like Spirit belongs there. Yeah. Because Spirit is, like, strong enough that if you're not messing up and if you're like, you know, getting the better of the survivors consistently, you're going to be just dominating chases. Like it's going to be very, very strong. 9 with Rusty Flute for a full power use. So 15 seconds for a full. Oh, so I was right. 15 seconds, but with Rusty Flute, it's 9, and Rusty Flute's super common. So yeah, I mean, 9 seconds is not a whole lot. That's not a whole lot at all. But again, Spirit is extremely skill-based. So, like, again, it's tough. Because I feel like this is assuming that the Spirit player is extremely good. Like, I'm not talking just like your average okay Spirit, right? Like, again, I said earlier I'm a mediocre Spirit. I'm sure if I booted up and played 10 games of Spirit in a row right now, I would probably 4K most of them, even though I'm not a great Spirit player. Because your average Shriver player just runs in straight lines and doesn't really, like... Again, like, I think catching your average Shriver is not that hard. But when you really, really get good players that know what they're doing... Like, I'm telling you, that's like the true test of a Spirit player, man. Like, you'll find out who the good Spirits are and who the, like, just average ones are. I'm definitely an average one. I can fully admit I'm an average one. But if you're like a really good spirit that knows what they're doing, I'm telling you, it's super deadly. Super, super deadly. Legion. Legion is D tier. I mean, Legion's pretty bad. Legion's like one of the only killers in the game, I think, that like... Wait, am I right about this? Maybe. Legion's like one of the killers in the game where, assuming that the survivors don't let themselves get quad hit, which should be very it should be very avoidable. Like, getting quad hit in Frenzy should not really be happening against any team that remotely knows what they're doing, right? Like, that's, you got to fuck up pretty bad for that to happen as a group of survivors. Assuming you don't get quad hit as survivors, I think Legion might be the only killer in the game that has to run down survivors with no chase power whatsoever. Like, nothing. Like, I'm talking like Myers at least has like faster like vaults. Like, even Ghostface can crouch, which like can make him less visible in loops and stuff. Like, I would consider that a minor chase power. Legion has no chase power whatsoever. Like, even Trapper has like traps, right? Like, Legion has literally nothing. Like, you can injure people for free, but once they're injured, you have to run them down as just a flat out 4.6 killer, no chase power, which is not good when you're going against good players. You know what I mean? Like, good players are gonna run you for a long time. Like, that's gonna happen. Like, that's gonna happen for sure. The one thing that is kind of good about Legion is that because the injuries are free, if you are really good at playing around like macro, like if you're really good at playing around macro and like hook positionings and stuff like that, you can punish like mistakes from survivors pretty decently. Like, it's actually a little like interesting how good that is, actually, in a weird way. Like, for instance, if the survivors do make a little bit of a mistake and they go down in like kind of a rough area, like if you just kind of like if you win a 50-50, or if they just like fuck up a check spot or something and die in like a bad spot, and you get a hook in like a strong area, like around gens or something, and everybody else is injured, it's like really hard because the survivors, like, if they try to go for the unhook injured, you can like watch for that, right? You can watch for rotations, you can try to like find them, because they'll most likely have to heal, and if they're healing, you can go out and find them and maybe like interrupt it, right? Like, there is a lot of threat around the like hook scenario. But again, that being said, if the survivors are actually smart and know what they're doing, again, they're like, if someone's hooked in a 3-gen, they're just gonna, and the killer's clearly like patrolling it, the survivors are just gonna run away, heal, come at the hook full health, and it'll probably be fine. But there is like a little bit of potential because of all the free injuries. Like, having a bunch of survivors injured does put you in this like position of like being strong, where like when you're injured, right? Like, again, because again, I think ideal survivor play against Legion more often than not is just staying injured. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to heal, because healing up is dumb when he could just easily frenzy you and get a free hit. You know what I mean? But again, staying injured has its drawbacks, right? Like, you got to be really careful with your positioning. Like, if you're, for instance, if you're going for an unhook, you got to be super aware of like the killer's positioning. And if they're like at all protecting the hook, you have to just not go for it at all, because you just won't be able to get it. Like, there's a lot of like things that, there's a lot of like baggage that comes with being injured the whole time. So you got to balance that with Legion, right? That being said, he is pretty easy to balance it against, which is why I think I'm going to put him in D tier. And I think I'm going to put him above Trapper, I think. Above Myers? I think actually I will. I think I'll put him above Myers, actually. I do, yeah, you know what? I mean, he gets free injuries. Like, his early game isn't as dog shit as Myers. Yeah, you know, yeah. I think above Myers. You get free info from frenzying, which can be useful. Yeah, I think above Myers is fine. Yeah, I think that's good. Again, still, I think as Legion, you still need the survivors to mess up quite a bit to realistically win a game, though. Like, good survivors can even mess up quite a few times against a Legion and still beat you, right? Like, you need a lot to go wrong, I think, assuming the survivors are good. So yeah, it's still D tier. And interestingly enough, we were talking about how, you know, like, staying injured has all of its drawbacks and blah blah blah, but it's easy to handle against Legion, because that brings us to the next killer, who is finally we're getting an A tier killer. Finally, A tier has been fucking empty this whole time, but finally we get an A tier killer. Plague is a killer that also keeps you injured, but doesn't, like, it's not like as simple and easy as Legion in terms of counterplay, right? It's not like you just stay injured and then you just loop all day and then you like quickly heal up real quick before you go for an unhook and then you're fine or whatever, right? Like, there's a lot more that goes into it, and Plague is also pretty insane at area control, right? Like, she's a very weird, like, macro heavy killer where you want to like protect areas, you puke on gens, you get people injured with the puke, they basically stay injured forever, basically, unless they use a fountain. But if they use a fountain, that opens you up for getting your power. I will say that I think I think some people overestimate the strength of Plague's Red Puke. Some people, I think, are of the opinion that like Plague's Red Puke is this like insane ability that just completely obliterates survivors, and like it's not. Like it's strong. Don't get me wrong. Like it's very strong, but like a survivor can still loop a Red Puke Plague for a little while. It just definitely puts you at an advantage in chase. Like you probably will. A good Plague will get the down. It's just gonna take a bit of time, right? But like a survivor could definitely buy a lot of time, and there is like the threat of stuns, right? Like if you have like strong pallets that are at like high walled loops, right? Like jungle gyms or certain like high wall loops, like even like pallet gyms, can be very hard to play against Plague because you have to be super afraid of the stun, right? Like a stun in power will knock you out of it. So a good survivor will play around that, and like for instance, if you're playing like a pallet gym, you can play the short side. And as long as you're really, really good with like check spots and reacting, you can kind of play the short side and then just threaten the stun each time you go through. And it becomes like this coin flip. It's kind of like a Huntress coin flip, right? Where it's like they're like trying to predict whether they're going to throw it or not. And they're either going to stop and try to avoid the stun or try to barrel through. And if you happen to get the stun, you kick them out of power and then they're useless. So like the Red Puke isn't this like end all be all, the survivors get obliterated kind of ability, right? Like it's strong, but it's not the end of the world. But it is strong. And on top of that, everybody being injured all the time and like getting those injuries so easily, right? Like even if somebody cleanses for the sake of like going for an unhook or something, when they unhook the person, they're probably going to get sick because the person unhook's probably sick. Or if you puke on all the gens, then even when they unhook, they can, eventually they're going to have to do a gen that's puked on and then they're going to get sick, right? Like it's really easy to just to force out free injuries as Plague. So he's kind of like Legion in that way, where like you can chase around as a 4.6 killer and kind of be the same strength as Legion, but on top of that, you also get this Red Puke buff that, where like if the survivors want to heal at any point, they have to give you this power up. And on top of that, you also get the power up by default, at least one, and you can get even more with add-ons that you can use already too, which kind of helps you snowball at some point in like the mid game. So yeah, Plague just has a lot more going for her. Area control is kind of nuts. If you get into a scenario where like Plague has a really strong gen setup, and especially if like someone's dead and it's like a 3v1, that shit is like nightmare situation, dude. It's like it's so hard to deal with. Even in a 4v1, it can be kind of hard to deal with, to be honest with you. Like she requires honestly like a lot of smart positioning, smart macro play. It's tough, man. It's very, very tough. Like Plague is a killer that can absolutely stomp on a lot of teams, but proper survivor play makes it like a pretty fair matchup. But honestly, I would say maybe slightly killer favored, like on a lot of maps. Like she's honestly decent. She's also not very map dependent too. That's another thing. Like she does well on most maps. Like I feel like there's not a lot of maps that are like particularly terrible for her, which is also really good. Also, she counters healing perks. Like that's a big thing. Like healing perks counter so many killers. Like there's so many, especially these like bottom tier killers, right? Like Hag gets like, you bring like one circle of healing boon and Hag is just like hating her life, right? But there's so many killers where like if the survivors have like we'll make it, botany, circle of healing, all these like really fast healing perks, it's so hard to keep pressure up, right? Because they're just getting back to full health so quickly. Plague just circumvents all that, right? Like there's no like healing perks just basically don't exist against her. So that's also a pretty big like thing that makes her strong too, that kind of keeps her up in A tier. So like no fast healing. Healing has to give her power, really good area control. Her power is pretty damn threatening. It's not like insane, but it's pretty damn threatening. She's honestly, yeah, she's solid. She's a good solid A tier. She's a good killer. And also she has really good add-ons. That's another thing too. Her add-ons are insane, right? Like her ultra rares, she has some of the best ultra rares in the game. Like Black Incense and Eerie Seal are nuts. And obviously we're not assuming that any killer is running like their best add-ons every game, but even like her next best ones are good, right? Like the ones that make her puke like do more are good. Like the apples that give you fountains early are good. The ones that give you longer corrupt puke are good. Like she has so many good add-ons. Like even if you're just talking about like average add-ons, she still is extremely good in that sense, right? She has a lot of good add-ons, and her ultra rares are like especially good. She's very, very solid. Up next is Ghostface. Ooh, I don't know where to put Ghostface. He's kind of a weird one. Like he's either going either C or B. Like I want to put him B tier. I do, but I don't know if I can justify it. I'm gonna think out loud right now. Okay, I'm just gonna speak out loud, and I'm gonna hopefully I come to the conclusion by the time I'm done talking. Okay. So Ghostface is a killer. He is, in my opinion, by the way, this has nothing to do with his strength. I think Ghostface is like the perfectly designed stealth killer. I think they literally nailed stealth killer design with Ghostface. Like I feel like they might as well ditch the idea of ever making a stealth killer ever again, because they literally made the perfect one with him. He's so well designed. I love it. I think the one thing that is maybe badly designed is I know a lot of people complain about not being able to break him out. FYI, if anybody's watching this and you don't know why you're trying to break out Ghostface, that's not working. There's this weird little known thing. Well, I say little known. I don't know. Maybe a lot of people know it. But your survivor's model can actually block the breakout. Does that make sense? Like say you're playing big ass bulky David King, and like your camera's on Ghostface, but he goes like behind David on your third person camera, you won't break him out anymore. It's kind of weird. Like, you need him to be center camera, but also like slightly to the side. Like, you need your third person camera to see him, right? Like, if your survivor model like eclipses him, it won't break him out anymore. It's kind of weird. But I think as long as you understand that, then I think he's like the best design killer in the game. I think they should probably get rid of that because that's weird, right? Like, I don't know why it's a thing. If they just change that, then I think he'd be the best design killer in the game because his stealth is phenomenal, dude. He can pop stealth. He goes 4.6. He's very fast and threatening. He has that like that lean mechanic, right? Like, you can lean around corners and stalk people. And if you get like that pixel perfect lean, you can literally stalk people for free and they can't break you out, which is sick. So like your stealth becomes really, really strong. And the thing that really, really makes him cool is 99 stalking. I say this all the time, but Ghostface with like 99% stalking or 90% stalking or whatever, the idea of basically like if you stalk a survivor, right? Like if you stalk a survivor up to like almost full and then leave them, there's no way for them to regress that stalk other than getting hit or letting you get the stalk to full, right? There's no other way to like reset it. So it's actually really, really sick. It's like this weird mechanic where it's almost like, because again, like the way that most stealth killers play, like if you're trying to play like hit and run Wraith, or if you're trying to play like any stealth killer based on nothing but stealth, typically the way it goes is you sneak up on a survivor, you get one hit, right? Because you snuck up on them and you caught them off guard. You get one hit, they run away with their speed boost, and then if you commit to them, they're suddenly in a strong area with a bunch of pallets and they loop you forever and then your life sucks. So you like hit them and then you leave and you want to try to find them again later or something, right? Like that's kind of the idea. But essentially it becomes really hard because you can't really commit, right? Because essentially you only get one hit and that's it. So ideally you want people to be injured, but then they just heal up and then they're no longer injured and then life sucks. But Ghostface is so cool because even if they're full health, it doesn't matter. Because if you 90% stalk them, if you 90 or 99% stalk them, then basically they're like, it's like the equivalent of being injured, but you can't heal it, right? Like if at any point if Ghostface finds you and his power is off cooldown, which it will be a lot of the time, he insta-stalks you, you're one shot, you get downed, right? There's no chase. It's just, you're fucking dead. You're dead on the spot. It's almost like you're injured and you can't even heal. It's insane. I mean, obviously there is some things you can do. You can like body block, like, while the killer's carrying the hook or something to force a hit or something. Like there's things like that you can do to like play around it somewhat, right? Where you can sometimes force hits to get the stalk to go away. But for the most part, it's very, very hard. And on top of that, also on top of that, you also don't see your stalk process progress. Sorry, that's the wrong word. You don't see your stalk progress as survivor, which is really interesting. So if, as Ghostface, if you truly actually sneak, right, and you like stalk a survivor with them not knowing that you stalked them, then they won't even know that they're one shot, right? Because like it's one thing to like stalk someone mid chase and they're like, okay, clearly this Ghostface has a lot of stalk on me. I got to be careful with my positioning because he might be able to one shot me. Or maybe they'll kind of like I said, maybe they'll throw themselves at you while you're carrying a survivor to try to force a hit so they can heal it up and reset their stalk or whatever, right? Like obviously there's like that kind of stuff, but like if you can manage to sneak and stalk somebody without them realizing it, that's so deadly because they literally won't even know that it's a thing, right? Like you'll just find them and then bam, they're dead. They won't have any idea about it. Again, he is a little map dependent. I feel like Ghostface on like indoor maps is incredibly strong, right? Like if you're playing Ghostface on like Larry's or some indoor map, he's really, really strong. And then on outdoor maps, he becomes a little bit weaker, but honestly, at the end of the day, he's still pretty solid on outdoor maps too. I do think the one major thing that makes him weaker on outdoor maps is, I think, kind of like Trapper, I think it's very realistic that if you get a good squad of survivors that know what they're doing, you can kind of have people playing aggressively on him, right? Like, again, if it's very, very outdoor, very open, you can, like, follow him around and keep vision on him, even while you're, like, in a safe area yourself, right? Like, you can't do that on indoor maps, right? If you're on, like, Larry's, you can't follow Ghostface, because there's, like, 1,000 corridors, and if you turn a corner and he's, like, waiting there for you, you just get hit. But if you're on a map, like, I don't know, Rotten Fields or something, you can, like, follow Ghostface from, like, 20 meters away, and see exactly where he's going, and then if he ever turns around to try to hit you, you have all this distance so you can run to pallets and stuff, right? So you can kind of, like, play kind of like you would against Trapper, where you like harass, you have like a very aggressive survivor, harass him and kind of make it hard for him to even stalk people, and that does make life hard, right? Like that can make life hard for him. And I think that's the main reason why I can't put him B tier. Yeah, I decided I can't put him B tier. As a matter of fact, if we're talking about all maps and good survivors, I don't even know if I could put him high C tier. The more I'm thinking about it, like I do think, like, again, there is like a scenario though, right? Like, again, if you stalk someone to like 99% and they don't even know that they're stalked, say like that person is the person that tries to go in for the unhook or something, and then you catch them on their way to the hook and you down them like right in front of the hook, that's like almost game ending, right? Like having a hook and then a down right in front of the hook, like if you play around that as a killer, that's like almost game ending. And like that's a kind of a scenario that can happen with Ghostface pretty easily if the survivors aren't careful. So like even on like outdoor maps, right? Like that can absolutely happen. So I do feel like he's got to go C tier, but like it's such a shame because I want to put him so much higher. Like, again, I love his design, dude. I fucking love his design. He's such a fun stealth killer. I feel like he's one of the only killers that can really scare the shit out of you. He feels like a genuine stealth killer. I love his design. But I still think, again, I think survivors that aren't afraid to play a bit aggressive can definitely shut down his power a little too well. And yeah, I just don't think you can quite get it. You're still relying a lot on the survivors messing up, right? Like, you're still relying quite a bit. Like, I don't know. Like, if the survivors aren't messing up, then, like, you're probably going to be struggling. So yeah, I think it's like right here, probably below. Yeah, probably below. Again, if we're talking about, I'm thinking about like forcing hits being the most important thing too. Yeah, like yeah, I think it's like right here. Like I think above Pig. Like I think he's better than Pig, but like not better than Doctor and Clown. I think that's about right. Man, I'm so sad to put him there. I wanted him to be so much higher. I was trying to talk myself into putting him higher, but I just can't do it. I can't do it. I love Demo. I used to hate Demo until I discovered crouch checking, and now that I know about crouch checking, I love Demo. It's great. Demo's B tier, I think. I think Demo is a pretty solid B tier. He's like a very solid killer that has a lot in his kit, right? Like he's got the mobility with the portals. It's not like crazy strong mobility, right? Like there's some killers that have absurd mobility, like Blight, Billy, even like Dredge kind of has pretty insane mobility. Like his mobility is not like absurd, but it's a good solid mobility power. And then his chase power is also really like convenient and solid and easy to use and just strong, right? Like it's a very strong zoning tool. It's a very strong chase tool. There's a lot you can do with it. I feel like he's a little bit above these guys actually. I feel like Demo's like right there. I feel like Demo's stronger than Bubba in my opinion. Yeah, I think he's below Wraith, but I think he's like above Bubba. I think. Again, you can like there's a lot of tiles. Like Demo's one of those killers you got to be really careful, right? Because there's a lot of tiles where you can like force hits, and it's very very dangerous, and you got to be really really careful with your positioning. But there's also a lot of tiles that are much, much safer, and you can kind of like a really good survivor can take a good demo and a pretty solid chase, right? Like you're not going to guarantee get it down super quickly, but again, you do have the tools available to force hits. I feel like demos kind of end up making chases like this really, really big skill matchup, right? Like I think demo chases are very, very good when both sides are good, right? Like I think the better player can excel a lot. Like if you're a significantly better killer than the survivor you're chasing, you can kill them in like 30 seconds. If you're a significantly better survivor than the killer, then you can run them for like 3 minutes, right? Like I feel like that can easily happen with demo, and it's really nice to see. Like I feel like skill expression matters a lot with chases with demo, and I like that. I like that a lot. I think it's very, very fun and interesting. So yeah, I don't know. I don't really know what else there really is to say. I feel like the demo section is kind of short, but like yeah, he's just good. Like his chase power is solid, but it has counterplay. A lot of times the counterplay is like a coin flip though, right? Like sometimes the counterplay isn't like a guaranteed like I get away. Sometimes you do something that's like a 50% chance of winning and like 50% chance of not winning. But again, that creates very dynamic situations where I think a lot of like predictions needed, a lot of like outplay potentials there. I think he just creates fun situations between both sides, and I think he's right around the middle. Like I feel like he's like right down the middle in terms of like strength. Like he's strong, but he's not like he's not so weak that he can't make anything happen, but he's not like so strong that like the survivors are constantly struggling and like have no power. Like I feel like he's right in the middle. Like I feel like he's very, very in the middle. All right, Oni. Oh, my baby. Oh, my baby. I love Oni. I gotta put Oni. I think Oni is like the very, very, very top A tier killer. I think. Like I feel like Oni is like maybe like the perfect example of a killer where there is this like clear cut counterplay of what to do against him, and if you do it, it's like he should struggle and it should be hard. But literally, all it takes is like getting hit, like giving him a single hit at like 5 gens. And if the Oni is good enough, you're just fucking dead. Like you're literally just fucking dead. Like there's nothing you can do about it, right? And like avoiding getting hit should be relatively reasonable to do, right? Like really good players should be able to avoid it for the most part. But it depends a lot on the map. And also it depends, like I think a really good M1 killer can eventually force out a hit. And I feel like even Oni, like even if say you pop like 2 gens before he gets his first hit, like you can literally be down to 3 gens left as he gets his first hit. And a good Oni player can still snowball that, right? Like all it takes is like one little tiny mess up is all it takes against a good Oni, and you're fucking dead. Like you're just flat out dead. So Oni's got to be top of A tier to me, because I feel like I can't justify putting him S tier because again, really disciplined tight survivor play against him will make him struggle, right? Like you should lose against that. But that again, it's like you got to be playing like near perfect, right? Like it takes very few fuck ups. Again, if we're talking about like a good Oni player, right? Like a good Oni player, it takes very few fuck ups against an Oni for him to be able to get to the point where it's just spinning out of control and he's just shitting on everybody. You know what I mean? Like it does not take very much to get there at all. So I feel like he's like one of the most explosive killers in that regard. He's my favorite killer in the whole game. I mean, I'm kind of glazing him a bit because I love him. He's my favorite killer in the game. I fucking love this killer. I think he's another killer that I think is perfectly designed. Like I think Ghostface, perfectly designed stealth killer. I think Oni is like the perfect killer, dude. Like there is counterplay, but it's very difficult. He has all the tools that he needs to like pop off, but also it also takes some skill to pop off, right? Like for instance, a bad Oni. Like if you give a bad Oni a hit at 5 gens, it's not necessarily game over, right? Like you can beat a bad Oni player even if they get a hit at 5 gens. It's not like it's GG, right? Like there is things you can do against them, but it's like the better you are with Oni, the more the threat there is. But then there's still always that like good counterplay that you can do as survivor that will deny him altogether. And like both sides just, I feel like it's like such a skill expressive matchup. Like I feel like an Oni games I feel like are where truly skill shines. Like I think a truly skilled Oni player is only gonna lose to a truly like around the same or better group of survivors, right? Like I don't think like for instance, I think if you're like, I don't know, this is kind of a weird, trying to articulate this is kind of hard, but let's just like pretend that we can judge people's skill on DVD based off like rankings in other games, right? Say you're so good at DVD that you'd be considered like a fucking masters player in quotes, and you're playing like Freddy, right? And then you're going against survivors that would be at the skill level that you would expect, like, I don't know, platinum players to be at, I guess. I feel like you can lose that as Freddy, right? Like, you might lose that because Freddy is just not that strong, right? Like, if they just play, like, solidly, you can probably lose. Like, you might still win, but you realistically could lose. I think if you got that same matchup with Oni wins it every single time, without fail, every single time. I think he wins it. And same with vice versa. I think if it was, like, you know, like master survivors against like a platinum Oni or whatever, right? Like in theory, if that really existed in DBD, I think it's like a very, very good, like, I think the skilled side gets ahead in an Oni matchup, and I like that a lot. I think it's really, really cool. I think he's such a well-designed killer. I think he's extremely strong, but the counterplay is there. And yeah, that's it. I don't know. That's it. That's all I gotta say. I can keep glazing, dude. I can literally spend like 30 minutes on this Oni section just glazing Oni and calling him my favorite killer and saying he's the best design killer in the game. But I should probably shut up. I should probably stop and move on because I love him. But like, yeah, he's just really, really good. Solid high A tier, just below S tier, but not quite good enough to be an S tier. All right, Slinger. Slinger's an interesting one because Slinger is like an extremely feast or famine killer, right? Like his chase potential is like extreme. Like he's got one of the best chases in the whole game. I think it's safe to say. Like in theory, like he theoretically has like one of the best chases in the whole game. Like if you're actually landing your shots, like realistically, if you can land a shot on most pallets, like most pallets in the game aren't even safe like post thrown against Slinger, right? Like if you circle around a pallet and then get a shot at the right moment and just pull them to you, like there's very few places that are truly safe against Slinger. But obviously, like some pallets are like, it's hard. You got to get like the perfect shot. So sometimes it is more worth it to just kick a pallet. You know, it's not always worth it to go for these crazy shots. But point is like he's almost always a threat. Like if you're going against a good Slinger, there's very, very few situations where he's not a threat at all. Like he's almost always a threat. But at the same time, like the hitbox of his shot is tiny. It's very, very tiny. And it requires you to be very precise. And on top of that, if the survivors are more than like, I don't know, like 10 meters away, then like the little bit of travel time that it takes for the shot to actually get to them means that you have to predict at least a little bit, right? Like you got to predict at least a little bit. Like if you shoot directly where they are and they like crouch to the side, you'll miss, right? If you shoot like outwards expecting them to juke and then they don't juke, then you miss, right? Like it does require a little bit of prediction if you're even more than like 10 meters away. So because of that, it's like hard to get like 100% reliable damage with them sometimes, but there are a lot of situations where you do get 100% reliable damage. So it's like this weird battle, right? Like when you're playing Slinger, I feel like it's like this weird battle of like knowing when to take your shots and knowing when not to. Because if you just waited for the guaranteed hits and that's it, it would be too slow. Like you wouldn't get hits fast enough, right? Like you can get guaranteed hits as them, but like you have to get close enough to the survivor to guarantee it. And he's a 4.4 killer, so it's kind of slow to do. And if you only went for guaranteed hits, then you would be too slow to actually win the game. So you do kind of have to take some risks. And it's like, if the risks pay off and you land your shots, he can snowball like crazy and be incredibly powerful. But at the same time, if they don't, right, like if they don't pay off and you're like missing a lot, he can very, very easily fall behind. And again, it's weird because like Huntress, for instance, has like 7 hatchets, right? She throws a hatchet. Like if Huntress pulls a hatchet and throws it and misses, it's not the end of the world. Like she slowed down a little bit while she threw it, but she still has 6 more she can pull and keep throwing, right? Like there's not like that much going on. With Slinger, it's like when you miss, you have this like actually they buffed this recently. They actually buffed this. Like you miss, you go through like a little bit of a cooldown, you go through like a reload animation where you slow down again, then you finish that, and then you get back up, and then you're ready to go again, right? And it's like so much distance that you give the survivor every time that happens. And again, like it's kind of like I said, distance is so important with Slinger, right? There's a big difference. Like I would argue that with a lot of killers, there's not that big of a difference between a survivor being like, you know, like 10 meters and 20 meters or whatever. But with Slinger, there is, right? Or even like, I would say, even like 8 meters or 10 meters. Like that little bit of distance is so important with Slinger. Because again, like that little bit, like that tiny hitbox mixed with like the slight prediction that you need means that you, like the closer you are, the way more deadly you are. And I feel like you, like ideally, you don't want to give up distance ever. So every time you miss, you give up distance and it's really punishing. It can be really, really tough. But that being said, I think if the Slinger lands most of his shots, like if you have a game of Slinger where you're landing most of your shots, he's fucking deadly. A lot deadlier than I think people realize. And I do think the one thing about him though is he is a bit map dependent though. So it's a little tough. Like the map thing is tough. Honestly, if he's on a good map, I think if he's on like a solid map for him, I literally would put him in A tier, I think. Like I'd put him like bottom A tier if he's on a good map. I think because of the map dependencies, I think I'm put him high B tier. I think he's like right above Wraith in B tier. He's like edging on A tier though. Like he's edging, bro. He's gooning. He's gooning it near the A tier because he's honestly very, very good. Like he's very threatening, but again, that's also assuming you're hitting all your shots, which even like really good Slinger players can't like guarantee that they hit every shot, right? Even like the best Slinger player in the world isn't going to have 100% accuracy because again, there is some prediction involved, and if you just happen to guess wrong, then you're going to miss sometimes, right? And if you happen to have a game where you're just guessing wrong often, then even the best Slinger player in the world could struggle, right? There's no guarantee of having results. So like I feel like that makes me have to put him in high B tier, but he is very threatening. He's definitely like, I would say more threatening than all of these killers for sure, but maybe a little less than these. Yeah. I think he's in a good place right now. Yeah. Pyramid Head's A tier. He's fucking nuts. He's super good. Pyramid Head's power is such bullshit, dude. he's got such a bullshit power, bro. He like the fucking shockwave goes through walls and shit, through pallets, through windows, everything. This killer's so dumb with zoning, dude. Like literally while you have your sword in the ground, like right, like he runs around 4.6, right, like the same speed as like Billy Trapper or whatever, and then he puts his sword in the ground to ready his shockwave ability, and while he has a sword in the ground, the motherfucker goes 4.4. He goes 4.4. He goes the speed that Huntress runs all the time while his sword is in the ground. It's so insane. Like, you could be running around a loop, and he'll just follow you around with his sword in the ground, catching up to you very rapidly, and then you have to, like, and then eventually he's, like, right on top of you, and then what do, right? You have to, like, throw a pallet, vault a window, and if you do, he shockwaves you. You can try to fake it, but if he doesn't shockwave and it calls your fake, he hits you. Like, his zoning is fucking insane. Like his zoning is so dumb. It's so dumb. And on top of that, there is a lot of situations where like if you land like a good shockwave at a right moment, right? Like if a survivor's like near like a place on the map that's like very zonable, and you land a shockwave at the right moment and get them injured, they'll just die. Like you can just basically insta-give someone in certain scenarios if you catch him in a bad spot. Like he is so devastatingly strong in chase. The thing about it though is that if you do happen to miss, right, like it's not exactly free. Like the survivors can definitely make it hard to land your power. They can also predict it and just try to juke away from it. And there is like a lot of situations where like there's also like a little bit of a mind game that survivors can do with pallets where like this kind of happens with a lot of killers. But say you're like following a survivor to a pallet with your sword in the ground. They run through the pallet. They can kind of like fake like they're going to keep going and not through the pallet, and then kind of like come back and throw it right once you're underneath it to get a stun on you. Actually, funnily enough, if the Pyramid Head can react fast enough to it, they can actually throw out a shockwave and hit you even though they're stunned, which is weird. I know there's a lot of weird interactions there. It's kind of hard to explain it all. But essentially, there is like little things like that as Survivor that you can do that will make it hard. Like it's not like there's nothing the Survivor can do. Like they have some options, but at the end of the day, if the killer like guesses correctly and predicts correctly and doesn't like bite a fake or whatever, you essentially just get hits. Like pretty much every time you get within range of like an M1, you should be getting damage pretty much every single time. And you should get there decently often because he doesn't like Again, the only times the survivor is gaining distance is if you go for a shockwave and miss. If that doesn't happen, then you're pretty much always gaining distance. So yeah, Pyramid Head's very strong. Also, again, like the fucking psycho shockwaves that good Pyramid Heads send out too are also insane, right? Because you never know, like not every Pyramid Head just zones all the time too, right? So if you're banking on him just zoning and then randomly while you're at a loop, he just throws out a random shockwave and you die to it. Like there's so much crazy shit that he can do that like he's definitely I'm putting him above Plague. He's A tier for sure. He is so deadly. On top of that, he also has like the ability to get around anti-tunnel, right? Like you can't reliably use things like DS and off the record against them because if you get tormented, you could use his cages and whatever to kind of get around that. And on top of that, it's kind of funny because like if you really want to play like a dickhead as Pyramid Head and like camp people out or whatever or secure kills, they added this like mechanic to cages where you're not supposed to be able to camp them because if you stay within a certain range, then they like teleport across the map. But it's stupid because like if you're running range add-ons like everyone does, that I'm pretty sure that you can sit within range of a shockwave of the cage and the cage won't teleport. Like, I think, okay, these numbers might not be right, but I think it's 8 meters. I think if the Pyramid Head's within 8 meters of the cage for too long, it'll teleport across the map. But I think with add-ons, the shockwave does like 10 or 11 meters or something. So I think you can literally sit like 10 meters away and just sit there with your sword in the ground and they can't do anything. They literally can't do anything. It's so wild. It's so wild. Like, they didn't do a very good job of actually making his cage not campable. I'll say that much. Either way, and even if it's not within range, like you can sit just outside of it, and basically the same thing applies, right? Like you can't really uncage while the Pyramid Head's right there because he'll just shockwave and redown the person in half a second. Because again, there's no built-in barred time, there's no off the record, there's no decisive strike. Like if you uncage somebody right in front of a Pyramid Head, they just insta die every single time. There's no possible way to avoid it. So yeah, I mean that's also a part of his kit that's also really strong too. But again, his chase is just nuts. His chase is nuts, and I feel like his zoning is nuts, and that's basically just the whole thing about the killer, and it's enough to definitely put him up high. Like, he's a killer that can get out of control really, really fast. You basically have to hope, like against Pyramid Head, you have to hope that he's missing a good bit of shockwaves, and that you can make up a lot of time after that happens, essentially. It's got to be the hope. So you got to be really good at predicting a survivor, you got to be really good at juking, and hoping that you can make something happen, because if the Pyramid Head is landing the shockwaves, like decently, consistently, even just like, if like 70% of them are landing, you're fucking dead every single time. There's no way. Like, you will just die. You got to just get below that 70%, which is hard. It's definitely tough. But there is at least things you can do as Survivor, right? Like, I don't think he's quite like S tier level, because I feel like against S tiers, there's like so many less options that the Survivors have. Whereas I feel like against Pyramid Head, there's at least options. You can like really pre-throw pallets. Like you can like pre-throw them, right? Like when he's like nowhere near you. You could do the thing, like I said, where you fake throwing them and then go through. There is like things you can do. You can tie different tiles together to try to like make him run out of, you know, his power. There's like a lot of little things you could do that you don't really like. There were S tiers, you have way less options. So I don't think he belongs in S. But high A tier is definitely where he belongs. Yeah. Blight's still S tier. Blight's still S tier for sure. I know after Hug Take got removed, everybody was like, "Oh my God, Blight!" I think I remember hearing people say. I mean, I say people. It was like probably like a couple people, but I think I remember seeing some people say, after Hug Take got removed, people were putting him in like B tier or something, and I was like, what the fuck am I looking at? Because that shit's crazy. Like, Hug Take being removed obviously did affect him. I think before Hug Take was removed, I actually put him above Nurse before Hug Take was removed. Like back, and also when the speed add-ons were unnerfed too, like pre-nerf speed add-ons, and also with Hug Take, I think he was the best killer in the game. But speed add-ons got nerfed a little bit. Hug Tech is also removed now. They did get rid of some of his options, but still good Blight players are still insanely deadly. You know what I mean? Like, to give a good example, I'm not at Wesker yet, but I'm sure most people know that Wesker's a pretty strong killer. I feel like Blight's power is almost like Wesker's on steroids, because it's like, with Wesker, you do like the 1 dash, 2 dash to try to get a hit. With Blight, you could do like 1 dash, 2 dash, 3 dash, 4 dash, 5 dash, right? Like there's so many dashes that you have, and if you really are good at controlling his power, and you're also like I think the big thing about Blight is that before, with Hug Tech still in the game, you didn't really have to like be careful when you used power. I feel like you almost could just use power off cooldown every single time, no matter where you were. You just immediately would send it no matter what. Whereas I feel like now with Blight, you have to maybe actually think a little bit about like, okay, let me like walk for a little bit, get to an area where I can start to put pump logic together. Whereas I feel like with Hug Tech, you would just figure it out on the fly, because you just had so many options. Now you have to actually think a little bit more. But again, good Blight players that are able to like use their power at the right moments and really like piece together that good bump logic, it's still insanely deadly. It's super deadly. Like, he's got one of the best mobility in the game. I will say though that like he does have a bit of counterplay now. Like you definitely could at least like it's possible to like get Blight to use all 5 rushes without getting a hit now. Whereas I feel like before that shit was like really hard, like near impossible. Whereas now it's like more realistic for that to happen. But even if that does happen, it's still not the end of the world, right? He's still crazy mobile. He still gets hits really quickly. And again, a lot of that boils down to like making him lose like usually you got to win like multiple 50-50s, right? Typically, if you're going to make him use all 5 rushes and miss, depending on where you are on the map, like obviously it depends on positioning, but typically that requires him to lose multiple coin flips for that to happen. So he's still like very, very much in control. And as long as you're like predicting correctly and like playing Blight well, you're still going to be dominating most of your chases. And that, like, I think dominating chases mixed with mobility means easy S tier, dude. Easy S tier. I just feel like because his chases are a little bit less dominant than they used to be, I don't think he's quite above Nurse. But I still think he's above Spirit. I still think he's like a good bit above Spirit. Like, I think there's actually a pretty big gap here between Spirit and Blight. I think he's very, very good still. Twins is such a weird one, dude. Because, like, I think Twins actually should get shit on pretty hard. This is so hard because Twins probably has the most obscure and difficult counterplay out of any killer in the game. Like, I don't know if there's any killer that has like a more obscure, different counterplay, right? Maybe. Maybe. Yeah, no, I don't think so. I don't know. I might change my mind on that later. I don't know. But I don't think there's a killer that has a more like obscure counterplay, right? Like, let me try to break down some of the counterplay things to Twins real quick, okay? So I'm just going to explain this like you're a 5-year-old that's never played. Okay, well, maybe not like you're a 5-year-old. I'm going to explain this like you're somebody that doesn't really know a lot about Twins. So bear with me if I'm saying a bunch of shit you already know, okay? So the way Twins works, obviously, is Charlotte's 4.6, right? She's just a normal killer. She's just girl with sickle. She's not very strong in chase, right? She's just like a normal killer without really anything extra to make her powerful. And then she can basically split off with Victor, and then you can control Victor, who runs around really fast. I think he's like 6.0 move speed or something, which is really fast, right? Because survivors are 4.0, so you're like 150% speed or something. You run around really fast. You can charge this pounce that like pounces really, really quickly and goes over pallets and over windows. Essentially, Victor is designed in a way where a good killer player controlling Victor will get a hit every single time. Like, you cannot loop a Victor. It will not happen. Like, you can, there's little things you can try, but like a truly good Victor player is literally going to down you. Like, there's no way to reliably avoid it, right? But Charlotte, on the other hand, is avoidable because she's just 4.6 and you can loop her, right? So that's kind of the idea. But also, if you hit a full health survivor as Victor, you latch onto them, and then that survivor can then hold on to Victor for like 30 seconds, I think, before you can recall him. So they can kind of like kidnap Victor in a way and then make it so that you're stuck as Charlotte for 30 seconds, which makes you stuck in your weaker state, right? So that's kind of like the back and forth, right? If everybody's injured against Twins, like when you pounce an injured person as Victor, they get downed and then you keep controlling Victor. So in theory, like if everybody's downed as Victor and you just run around and find everybody, like you're super fast, right? And you also can just get hits for free. So in theory, like this is how Twins wins a lot of games, right? Especially like in like your like average like public, you know, like solo queue game or whatever. Is like they'll get everybody injured and then Victor will run around, down everybody, and then you're super fucking fast and you just insta down everybody and there's no way to loop or avoid them. And then fucking next thing you know, everyone's slugged on the ground and then it's game over, right? So like that's the general like design of Twins right now, is that's how it works. It's like being healthy is really good and you want to stay healthy when you can, but also Twins does get free hits every like 30 seconds or so with Victor. And also you might occasionally get hits with Charlotte, right? And you need to avoid that at all costs. Like survivors need to avoid at all costs getting hit by Charlotte. Like if Charlotte's getting like multiple hits in a game and the Twins player is good, then you're just basically dead. So that's the idea, right? But the thing about this is that like there's a lot of perks that really, really shit on Twins, dude. Like, healing perks are insanely good here. Like, Circle of Healing, even just, like, Botany Knowledge, Desperate Measures, right? Inner Strength, whatever. Like, anything like that is really, really powerful. Same thing with, like, Unbreakable is insanely good. Soul Guard's really good. Power Struggle Flip-Flop is, like, overpowered as fuck. Like, I know that's not, like, a super common like combo, but people do run it sometimes for fun, and Power Struggle Flip Flop just completely destroys this killer. There's like a lot of combos you could run that make life really, really tough for her, like a lot of perks, to the point where they make her power extremely hard, to the point where I think it's hard to put her super high here. But that being said, let me also explain a little bit like the counterplay, right? I feel like most killers have this very cut and dry counterplay, right? If you think about counterplaying Freddy, if you think about counterplaying Trapper, if you think about counterplaying Clown, if you think about counterplaying Wraith, the same general rule applies of like whoever's getting chased just needs to last as long as they can while everyone else does gens, and eventually they're going to get hooked, someone saves them, and then another person gets chased, and they last as long as they can while everyone does gens, and that's it. You just do gens, whoever's getting chased lasts as long as they can. That's basically it, right? Like, that's like the basic summary of it. Twins is wild because, like, you need teammate support. You can't, like, it's a weird killer where you can't solo, like, Twins, if that makes sense. Like a solo, like one really good survivor can get chased by almost any killer here, right? And like their skill is all that matters, right? As long as they're really good, especially if we're talking like B tier and below, right? Like if they're really good at survivor, they can take these guys on long chases and like carry their team. As Twins, you can't do that. Like even a god tier survivor against a good Twins player, you need your teammates' help, because if you don't, you're going to get hit by Victor once, eventually they're going to get recalled, and then they're going to send Victor again, and then you just die. And there's nothing you can do about it. But if you have a healthy teammate nearby, you can do all these weird things, right? Like if there's any kind of a corner, like whether it's in like a, you know, if there's any kind of a structure that has like a corner, like the survivor that's injured, like if you have Victor chasing you and you're injured, you can crouch in the corner, and then a full health survivor can kind of body block you into the corner. And because Victor's hitbox is so big, which also makes it really easy to get down as Victor, by the way, his hitbox is fucking huge. But because his hitbox is so big, you can 100% reliably take the Victor hit for the injured person every single time. Like, you can basically 100, like there's a kind of a buddy system thing you could do where as long as you send in a full health survivor to help the person being chased, you could always take the Victor hit. And then if they try to switch away from Victor, then you can just kick him, right? And, you know, put him in cooldown. And essentially, if you do take that Victor hit, then you kidnap him for 30 seconds, right? And then same thing applies, right? You can kind of like cycle people like that and kind of keep, but that's like really weird counterplay that like I feel like when it comes to like killer counterplay and people understanding it, Twins has got to be the most misunderstood. I say misunderstood, but yeah, I guess that's the right term. Like, I think people understand Twins counterplay the least out of any killer in the game. Like, I feel like the amount of people that truly know what to do against Twins has got to be so low. On top of that, there's little things like if Charlotte is like a certain amount of distance away and Victor's on you, you can just jump in a locker, because by the time, like, and then Victor will lock you in, but then you'll slowly break out, and if Charlotte's far enough away, you can break out before Charlotte even gets there, right? Like, little things like that are even, like, that one doesn't even really require teammates, but, like, it requires you to know about it, you know what I mean? Like, there's so many little things like that where, like, if you don't know about it, then you won't be able to do it. Hell, even jumping in locker just to stop the killer from snowballing can be really strong in certain scenarios, right? Like if he has like one down, maybe two downs, and he's about to down you as like third down, you can jump in a locker to force Victor to stop snowballing, right? There's things like that. Like there's so many things like that I think your average player doesn't know. But if we're making this tier, again, Twins, I think if we were making this tier list based off of like your average public game, you know, whatever the fuck, I would say S tier, honestly. Twins must dominate most of the time. Again, with the exception, maybe A tier because of all the perk counters, but even then, probably still S tier. Because I think there's very few people that are going to really, truly understand the counterplay. But if we are assuming you go against players that really don't understand the counterplay, and assuming they even just have a few of the perks, right? Like, I'm not going to say they all have Power Struggle Flip-Flop or anything, but even if they just have, like, a couple botany knowledges, maybe, like, one circle of healing or, you know, whatever. Like, if they just have, like, some healing perks and they also understand the counterplay, I feel like Twins is not... I still feel like it's hard, though. Like, the counterplay, even if you know it, it's hard. I still think Twins goes A, honestly. I think even with all the counterplay options, even with perks countering them kind of hard, like, I think if the survivors somehow have, like, the perfect builds to fuck you over, then maybe you can say she's, like, low B, right? Like, say every survivor has, like, Power Struggle Flip-Flop, Circle of Healing, Boon, Exponential, you know, then yeah, sure, maybe you can put her in B tier. But, like, assuming that, you know, there's just like a couple perk counters, but nothing too crazy, I still think she's A tier. I really do. Like, I think Twins is still, you have to be really careful, because I think one little fuck up, right? Like, there is that counterplay, but I think if you fuck it up even a little bit and you let the Twins kind of get out ahead, good Twins players will roll your shit, bro. They will fuck you up. Good Twins players are terrifying, dude. They are terrifying. And again, it's one of those things where if you've not seen a really good Twins player play, it's a sight to behold, bro. Because like the macro, like the strategy involved is wild. It's so impressive. It's so impressive. And again, like, I think there's just a little bit too many like perk counters, especially like reset counters in terms of like healing and stuff, that makes her a little bit weak. If it wasn't for all that, she would be pushing S tier, because yeah, like very strong potential to be deadly. Definitely better than B tier, but just not quite good enough for S tier. And I think like maybe towards bottom of A. Trickster's B tier, in my opinion. Trickster's honestly pretty solid since his buff. Like Trickster's now 4.6 by default, so he's no longer 4.4. So he's like kind of a threat as just like a normal M1 killer, and they also made him have no recoil during dagger throws. So like you can kind of just fucking laser beam people now, which is pretty crazy. But I still don't think he's better than B tier. I think he's probably around B tier. I don't know, better than Slinger? I think he's worse than Slinger by a little bit. Like I don't think his power realistically is still not great. Like if you're at like it's kind of similar to like Huntress in the sense where like if you're at one of those tiles where you can avoid getting hit as Huntress, you can typically avoid getting hit a lot as Trickster anyway. You can almost never avoid getting hit here and there. Like what a lot of Tricksters will do is they'll like follow you around the loop and they'll just get like 1 or 2 daggers in here and there, right? Like they turn a corner and they see you for like a second before you turn the corner. They'll land like 1 or 2 daggers, then you turn the corner. And they'll keep doing that, right, as you're looping. And then eventually it's enough to do damage, and eventually it's enough to down you, right? Like you can get these like guaranteed downs with Trickster. It's just that it kind of takes a while. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of got that problem where it kind of takes a while. But there is still so much more threat, right? Like he still has the M1 threat. Main event can be fucking crazy, especially for unhooks. Like if someone goes in basement against Trickster, bro, best of luck. Like you might as well just let them fucking die. Like there's like no hope. And it is still force damage, right? Like it is force damage. It is like similar to like Slinger in the sense that it's basically force damage. Like I think Trickster can force damage better than Huntress, for instance, right? Like Huntress, you need to flat out land your one hatchet that has like a long windup. Trickster, again, it's like even if you're just landing 1 or 2 daggers here and there on the loop, eventually the damage is going to come in. You know what I mean? Like you can force that. You can basically guarantee that. So that's still really strong. It just like it's kind of more on the slower end unless the survivors miss position, which again, I think he belongs in B tier because I think if the survivors do miss position at least a little bit, he can flurry that. He can fucking flurry them down so fast, right? Like he's definitely very threatening if you miss position at all in chase. He could absolutely just it's like 0 to 100 you in like a second if you're not careful. Unhooking is ridiculously dangerous against him. But again, it's not like so much of a threat that he's A tier. He's like right around the middle. He's like right around B tier. I do think he's strong though. I think he's stronger than a lot of people give him credit for. Or maybe he's not as strong as some people give him credit. It's hard to say. I guess I don't know what the general consensus on Trickster is, but I think he's like right around the middle. I think he's better than Wraith. I think he can force out hits better than Wraith can, but like he doesn't have the mobility of Wraith. He still has to stop the reload too, which can be kind of a problem. Yeah, I think that's fine. Below Slinger, above Wraith seems fine to me. Nemesis is a weird one. I think Nemi is actually not very great. Like, he has, like, so he's got the tentacle attack. He's got to hit you with the tentacle attack once to make you infected. And then once you get infected, he's able to, like, hit you again to get damage. There's, like, the strafe tech thing that's obviously pretty strong on him. But even strafe tech can be avoided if the survivors know it's coming. And, like, you also can cure yourself of the infection, too. Which means that, like, I don't know. Like, I feel like holding W is so strong against them. Hitting people with the whip makes them hold W better. I gotta put Nemi in C tier, dude. Nemi's a C tier killer. I don't know exactly where in C tier he goes, but somewhere in C tier. I think he's like... weirdly enough, I think I'm putting him in the middle of C tier, and a lot of it's because of his zombies, which is fucking weird. It's a weird reason to put him here. But the zombies are like this weird wild card, where like... literally, sometimes zombies like harassing a generator at the right moment can be a huge turning point, right? Like if there's like a really important gen that survivors are trying to get done or something that like the killer keeps hitting with like pain resin pop or something, and a zombie shows up right as they're about to finish it or something and like harasses them off, like that shit can be so insane. Or even if you're playing like an indoor map, the zombies are for some reason like silent as fuck. And like if you're playing like an indoor map, dude, sometimes you'll just turn a corner and bam, zombie in your face, and you'll have no idea until you're dead. You know, like that kind of stuff can happen a lot, and I feel like. Because of that like kind of randomness of him, I feel like he can do pretty well. But realistically, like him without the zombies just in chase is like okay, right? Like he has an okay solid chase power that like at least is a threat. But realistically, it's probably not better than clowns. You know what I mean? It's not really that great. And also you have to get a whole extra hit just to get damage, which gives them more distance too. So yeah, it sucks because I think survivors that know how to hold distance well are just gonna hold distance against you, and like they're gonna eat the first tentacle hit, they're gonna run away a bunch of distance. You gotta run after them to catch up, get another tentacle hit, they run away again with a bunch of distance, you run after them again, catch up. It's like the chases just take so long that by the time the downs come in, you're going to be losing a lot of gens, unless again, unless the zombies are, you know, being insane or something. I don't know, but you're most likely going to lose a lot of gens. The zombies are also, I forgot to mention, the zombies are actually pretty good for tracking too. Like the zombies will like put their arms up and chase people whenever they're nearby, which actually can be pretty good like cross map info, right? Sometimes as Nemby, you can look around and if you see a zombie with his arms up, like going in a direction, you know that he aggroed a survivor that was there, you know, which can actually be pretty good info, but. Again, I still think his chase is just too bad to put him anywhere other than C tier. Like, good survivors are going to make your chase really miserable. So, there's really no way around it. He's C tier. I feel like I'm going to put him below Ghostface. Yeah, I'm going to put him below Ghostface. Yeah. I think that's good. Pinhead, good old Pinhead. Pinhead's interesting. He's a pretty, like, Pinhead's a weird killer where it's really hard to get a judge of his level. Like, I feel like he's good, but like just how good? Like I feel like if you're a Pinhead player that's like landing every single chain, which I've seen a lot of Pinhead players do, like it's not like that hard to do that, I don't think. I shouldn't say it's not that hard, but I think it's like it's not impossible for that to be a thing. Like I've seen players that like almost never miss. It's crazy. And honestly, it's very hard to go against. Like you have to play very, very like properly, and you got to play around loops super carefully. But I do think there is enough counterplay there that I feel like he's probably B tier, but I'm thinking about A tier. Like I'm sitting here thinking about A tier. I don't think he's good enough for A tier. I think he goes in B. Like the box is an interesting mechanic because the box is kind of like this extra slowdown mechanic, right? Like it's nowhere near as strong as like, you know, reverse bear traps or anything, but there is like this extra slowdown where the survivors have to deal with the box at some point. You know what I mean? Which it's a time investment that they have to take care of, and if they don't, then the chain hunt's brutal. So that's like time off gens that you're forcing consistently. If you find the box at any point, or if you find the survivor carrying the box and you're able to activate it, that's insane because it gives you like the location of everybody and also causes a chain hunt, which is really, really good. And other than that, all he really has is just like the minor chase power, which his chase power is very similar to like Clown in the sense that you like basically just slow people down mid loop. The one thing that kind of fucks over Pinhead a bit is like the RNG of where the chains spawn. And I know that this can be like somewhat controlled, right? Like you can kind of like, I think really good Pinhead players might be able to like be wary of that and kind of be more careful of when they kind of go for the chains. But I don't think you could ever be fully like, I don't think you could ever fully avoid the RNG, right? Like for instance, whenever you hit somebody with your chain power, whatever, like wherever the chain you hit them from, hit them from, like that chain will always exist out of the three. Like basically three chains attached to the person when you hit them, right? One of them will always be the one that you genuinely hit them with, right? Wherever the portal was and wherever the survivor is, there will be a chain from that point. But two more chains will spawn in random locations, and they are random. I've tested this a bunch. Somebody tried telling me at one point that they weren't random, but then I tested it a bunch, and they were definitely random as fuck. And like it's really weird because sometimes like I've seen a lot of situations where like you'll land your shot and then the chains will spawn like basically around a wall, like just barely not around a wall to the point where a survivor can just like inch to the left and then it'll break on the environment instantly. And it's just like it's almost like a free chain break. Like I've seen situations where you'll hit a survivor with your power and then like the survivor will be broken free from all three chains in like half a second. And you're like, how the hell is this even possible? You know, it's crazy. It's honestly crazy. I feel like that RNG hurts him a lot. Again, that RNG might be a little bit more avoidable than I am giving it credit. Like, maybe I'm just a bad Pinhead. I know I'm probably not a great Pinhead, but I don't know how reliable it is to avoid that RNG. But even if you could avoid that RNG, I still don't think he's, like, incredibly strong. There's definitely a lot of teamwork that can come in here, right? Like, if you want to have a teammate help you in chase, they can, like, break chains for you and also body block, which can help you a lot. You can't really, like, reliably force down super quickly like you can with some of the other killers. Like you can't even force down better than like Slinger. I think just he has the extra benefit of having the box, which helps with slowdown. Realistically, yeah, I don't think he's even better than Slinger. You know, like now that I'm looking at it, I feel like he's below Slinger. I feel like he's right there. Below Slinger, above Trickster feels right to me. Yeah, I think that's correct. I do think though, kind of like Slinger, I do think a good Pinhead, like I think some of these like higher B tier killers can be crazy threatening. Like it might seem like being B tier means that they're bad, but like dude, like seeing like a really good Slinger or like a really good Pinhead player, like they can pop the fuck off. Like it's scary. Like bro, every time I see Kurt play fucking Pinhead, I want to cry. It's disgusting. It's like the grossest thing. I feel like I need to take a shower after. It's so nasty. So I feel like again, it's I don't want to like underestimate Pinhead too much, but I do feel like there is still like clean play you can do against them that makes life hard. So anyway, Artist is definitely a solid A tier killer. how solid. I think in between Pyramid Head and Oni. She does zoning like similar to Pyramid Head. Like she has a lot of good zoning, kind of similar to Pyramid Head, but she also has like cross map pressure in theory that she can do on gens. Even the pressure across map on gens, even if you're not like getting hits or whatever, just the info can be really, really useful. Her chase potential is very, very good, especially if you're a good artist player, right? You can be extremely deadly in chase. She has a lot of potential. I do think the one thing that kind of makes her suffer is maps. She is a bit map dependent. Like maps that have a lot of elevation changes will make her power significantly less strong. Like Swamp even. Every Swamp map has like those weird elevation changes around edge map and shit and all over the place. Or even just like a 2-story map or any map that just has a lot of elevation shifts can really make life hard. Because like if you land crows and then they go to like another floor, then like you just can't even really follow up at all, right? Like it's very, very tough. But I still think she's really good, right? Her zoning is good. Her chase is good. She has a lot of cross map potential. She's actually like, she's weird because she has a lot of good chase, right? Her chase is powerful, but she actually is very like, she kind of reminds me of Plague sometimes with like kind of like her area control. Like I feel like she's like this like weird hybrid killer where I feel like she seems like she should just be a chase killer, but she's got a lot of good area control too. Like she could really like hold down a setup really, really strong while also being extremely threatening in chase. Her unhook scenario can be really strong too with having birds like set up on hooks. Like basement can be extremely deadly against her. Like she has a lot of situations like that too, but there's really nothing like, I don't think there's anything too crazy to say about her, honestly. There's nothing like super eye-opening or super hot takey here. I think she's just good, right? Her chase is good. She gets good cross map info. She gets good area control. She does basically everything at like a pretty good level, right? Except for like mobility. Like basically any kind of category you can think about a killer, I feel like she would have like a in other than like mobility, right? Like she's not like S tier in anything, but she's like A tier in like everything except for mobility, which is just average. So I don't know. She's just very well-rounded, very good at a lot of different things. Just very, very solid killer. Probably, yeah, right below Oni. I don't think quite as devastating as Oni, but I think maybe a little bit more consistent than Pyramid Head, I think. Onryo's kind of dog tier now, dude. They kind of nerfed her to the ground, and she kind of fucking needed it, to be honest, because like Onryo, like in the most recent patch before this one, was super dumb, and I'm really glad they changed it. I've been seeing a lot of stuff lately. Again, I've recently been turned on to the Raico's Watch, underground fucking knowledge center of realizing how crazy Raico's Watch could potentially be. But I think even Raico's Watch, like, isn't that actually insane. Like I feel like there's very few situations where that's actually going to be like throughout a game, it's not like that's going to be consistently getting you hits, right? Like that opens up some mind games, but like it's not a whole lot. Like she still does have a lot of mobility. She does have like the stealth potential, like the hit and run potential. There is some stuff there. You do have to worry about condemn. I think if the Onryo is actually like making it a point to apply condemn to survivors, then you are going to have to occasionally deal with that, right? Like it kind of does give you that side objective, kind of similar to like Pinhead or whatever, where like eventually you're probably going to have to deal with condemn. You're going to have to grab a tape and carry it and get and lower your condemn, or else you're going to be dead. So like it's almost like extra gen time in a way that she gives, which is kind of nice. But at the end of the day, she's still very loopable, right? Like she still is very loopable. If you know how to utilize your passive phasing really well, right? Like your passive, well, I guess it's not passive phasing. It's more like active phasing, I guess. It's not really like spirit. Like hers is passive. Hers is more active. If you know how to like really utilize that like flashing in and out of invisibility thing, you can honestly catch a lot of people off guard at loops. Like she could be a lot more threatening at loops than people realize. But I still think that most pallets, if you just pre-throw them and then play it post-throw, she's not going to have that many options. And again, I think she's one of those types of killers where like safe play against her just makes her not able to do anything at all, really. But she does have that like little bit of extra gens, that like little bit of extra gen slowdown, and she does have like at least a little bit of a threat in chase if you're not careful, and the Onryo player knows how to utilize it. I feel like I'm putting her like bottom C. Like I honestly don't think she's even better than Pig, but I feel like the mobility, like again, she has like a little bit of everything. She's got decent mobility, like a very minor chase power, like very minor slowdown that gets added to her kit. She has stealth, right? Like there's like a little tiny bit of everything being added to her kit, but just none of it's like strong enough to really make her a huge threat, right? Like good survivors will still probably just roll her over, and there's not really much you can do. Dredge is next. This has got to be my least favorite killer in the fucking whole world to play, dude. Every time I have to play Dredge, I just hate my life. I feel like Dredge might be taking over Hag as my least favorite killer. No, that's not true. That's not true. Okay, I don't want to get carried away. I hate playing against Dredge, or I hate playing as Dredge, man. He's so miserable. He's so like slow and like for instance, if you're teleporting from one side of the map to the other with like not in Nightfall, bro, talk about the like slowest, most sluggish animation ever. You're like, and then you're there, and it's like, dude, really? Like that's how long like it's fucking awful, dude. It's so awful. It takes so long. On top of that, you can lock lockers, which makes life miserable. Your chase power of like placing a remnant down and then like using it to zone realistically is only usable at very certain situations, which is like if you have an extremely isolated tile where they can't really like leave the tile and go anywhere, then like you can use that as a mind game. But if there's any kind of a place where the survivor can run ever, then like your chase power is like really, really bad and not actually that useful. Like most maps, and also like even locker placements on maps are very RNG, right? There's some maps that are really good. Like for instance, Midwich is like an insanely good map for this killer, right? Because the pallets are very playable and there's lockers everywhere. So you kind of get the best out of both of your powers. But even on Midwich against good players, you're probably still going to be struggling, right? It's still going to be hard. Like, it's not necessarily free even then. Like, it's still a struggle. And on non-Midwich maps, you're just fucked. Like, if you're going against good players, dude, you're just fucked. Like, you're going to be in for a really bad time. Like, you're just not really going to be making much happen. I feel like Dredge... Again, there is still something there, though. Like, to Dredge's benefit... The mobility is still good, even if it's really slow at a Nightfall. I think Nightfall is actually still a really powerful place, right? Like, if you're in Nightfall and the survivors are, like, all injured, there still is that threat of them, like, teleporting right to you and then downing you, right, with all, like, the information and teleporting you have. But even that is still reliant on, like I said, like, locker spawns on maps and stuff, right? Like, there's a lot of places where even that's not really possible. Like, for instance, here's an example. If you're playing RPD and it's Nightfall and you're injured, guess where you can go? Out front. Out front of RPD, there is 0 lockers, ever. So, like, if you want to make sure that Dredge can't teleport right on your face for the entirety of Nightfall, you just walk to the front of RPD, and ta-da, you're safe. Dredge will never be able to teleport directly on your face and down you, no matter what. You could wait for Nightfall to be over and then go somewhere, or you could just get healed there. Like, there's so many things like that. Like, and that's just the quick example I can think of RPD. I'm sure there's a ton of other ones that are like that, too. So again, just very map dependent, even on the maps that are good, just not that good. I feel like Nightfall is like a pretty good benefit that you might be able to pop off with, but even then it's like barely. I feel like Dredge is literally below Legion to me. I just don't know where. Below Myers? Probably. Maybe? No. Well, maybe. No. Well, I don't know. Maybe. I think above Myers. Yeah. Above Myers, but below Legion, I think. Yeah, like right there, I think seems about right. That's fine with me. Dredge is unfortunately pretty weak. It sucks because like I kind of like the killer's like design. Like I think he's neat. I just don't think he functions well enough to be strong. And God, is he fucking miserable to play. Holy shit. If anybody out there is a Dredge main, my hat's off to you, dude. I don't know how you do it. Like this killer is so awful to play. Every time I play him, I feel like I'm just playing in slow motion 24/7. Everything feels so sluggish. Ugh, God, it's even just thinking about it makes me frustrated, dude. All right, anyway, Wesker's up next. He's a very solid A-tier killer. How solid of an A-tier killer? Wesker's an interesting killer because I feel like on most maps anyway, Wesker's power makes it possible to outplay almost any tile. It's just like sometimes it's like easier than other times and sometimes it's harder than other times. He's definitely A-tier. He's definitely A-tier. Okay, let me just think this through. His power is actually pretty okay for mobility, right? Like, weirdly enough, you can use his power just to get around the map, and it actually is, like, faster than normal walking, which could be kind of beneficial just to help you get around, right? Like, if you get a hook and then you want to make it do a gen really quickly to kick it with pop or something, like, his power can help you do that, like, really well. Much more so than, you know, someone like Pyramid Head or something who doesn't have any mobility. His power also, again, like, it's like a double dash, and if you're a fucking Pythagorean theorem fucking gamer, right, then like you might be able to like get some crazy hits on certain tiles, especially if you're really good at landing your flicks. He also has a lot of like little cheeky techs that you can pull off, although in a realistic scenario those aren't really helping you a lot of the time. Like against good players, techs aren't really being used a whole lot, but sometimes. I mean, we did see some crazy shit happens in tournaments before and stuff, so it is possible. But realistically, like Wesker's one of those killers where he's like always a threat, right? Like, if the Wesker player is good, he's always a threat. There's almost never a situation where you're... Not never. There's very few situations where you're, like, 100% perfectly safe against him. Like, it's very, very tough. And, like, if he can, like, kind of manipulate your positioning as well as land his dash in good ways, he's a threat at most places. And I feel like... Also, on top of that, something he excels at too, on top of like his ability to play most tiles even without like kicking them, like he can play a lot of pre-thrown pallets, right? Like even a thrown pallet can be played a lot of the times as him. But even if you don't want to play a thrown pallet, even just zoning and kicking is really strong, because if you zone the survivor, kick the pallet, your dashes are so fast and like the mobility of it's so good that a lot of times you could just catch them off before they make it anywhere else. So even that's really good, right? So on top of his ability to outplay tiles, like the zone and kick ability is there too that makes him really strong. And I feel like there's just a lot of power there, right? He feels like to me like an upgraded version of Demo. Like I know when I talked about Demo, I was talking about how like it feels like this like really big skill matchup where I feel like the better player is going to excel, right? Like if you're significantly better than the other side, I mean, like if you're like a really good Demo against a bad survivor, you're going to catch them quickly. If you're a really good survivor against a bad Demo, you're going to run them for like 30 years. Wesker feels like that, but like a little bit more sided towards killer. Like I feel like he has a little bit more potential to make plays happen than Demo. And he's just a bit more threatening to the point where he's going to be getting hits on you more often. On top of that, he has the like nice little mobility thing in his kit. Also, unironically, infecting people with your power and getting them to A, have to like go find a spray and spray, and also B, when they spray, they reveal themselves with killer instinct. That's a very powerful thing. Like that's like at least a minor slowdown, right? Like that's time off gens that they have to deal with that, which is something, right? That's like every time that happens, that's like an extra like, I don't know, 10, 15 seconds at least, right? Which is again, technically time off gens, right? Like that's like adding an extra 10 to 15 seconds to every gen every single time that you're hitting somebody with power. And B, the information you get from that of knowing where they are exactly is really, really good. It helps with game sense a lot, right? It helps you kind of plan your strategy and play your macro. So that's also another powerful part of his kit too, on top of just being a constant threat with power. I feel like Wesker's a tough one, man. Because I do think Wesker can be ran for a while, though. Like, it's definitely realistically possible to run him for a while. Like, especially depending on the map. Like, it's not like it's free downs, right? I think just because I think messing up your power with Wesker is a little bit more punishing than the killer I'm going to put this guy behind. So I'm going to put him right behind Pyramid Head. I think like messing up, I gotta give you use a double dash and miss. Your power goes on cooldown for quite a bit, and then you're kind of just stuck as a no power killer for a while. He does have like the nice mobility, but I think he's just a little bit less threatening in chase than Pyramid Head, just by a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit less threatening. But I do think he's a little bit better than Plague in terms of his ability to kill. Like he's a little bit more direct and less like reliant on the survivors. Like he can make plays happen, which I feel like Plague kind of can do, but kind of not really. So yeah, I think he's like mid-A. I think that's where I'm going to put him. Like right below Pyramid Head, but above Plague seems fine to me. Knight's pretty dog. He's pretty dog shit. How dog shit? How dog shit is Knight? He's like D. He's D tier dog shit. He's definitely D. He's in D for dog shit. That's the tier. He's going to the dog shit tier. But where? So Knight's a killer where like, again, without power, he's just 4.6. He's got nothing going for him. To actually use your power, let me think about where I'm going to put him. When you actually use your power, you got to like stop and place a guard, which first off, when you do that, any smart survivor is going to immediately just start running the fuck away, right? Like this is a killer where like distance is the counterplay to him, but using your power gives the survivor free distance no matter what. So it's like this weird like fuck you, right? Where it's like, how do you counterplay Knight? You just hold distance. Okay, well, when Knight uses power, he sits still for like at least like a second. A second's like if you insta spawn him and drop him right at your feet. If you're actually like following the survivor, then it might be like 5 seconds. Well, 5's probably too long, but it might be like 3 seconds, right? And that's a lot of distance, right? So like, assuming the survivor that you're chasing just holds W away when you go to use power, that's a long chase no matter what, right? They're going to bolt across the map. You're going to have to run them down. Sure, you might eventually get a guaranteed hit through like the guard plus you, but like it's going to take so long and you're going to run the whole way across the map that there's just no way you're being time efficient. There's no possible way. On top of that, there is a lot of room for survivors to like help each other, right? Like there's a lot of like body block plays you can make. There actually is a lot of plays you can make just to outplay guards outright, right? Like you can fake windows, you can break line of sight and make them do like these weird pathing things. Even throwing pallets makes the guards go around. Like a guard chasing a survivor doesn't even necessarily guarantee a down. It puts you in a strong position to get it down, but there's even still plays that survivors can make. It's just tough. It depends on where they are on the map. There's still a lot of teamwork that can happen, but even if they're not helping, like even if like the teammates aren't actually helping you like avoid getting downed, it still just takes so long to get the downs that like you're just not time efficient enough to actually like stop the gens from popping no matter what, right? And again, like if anyone wants to argue like OhTofu, you can get 2 taps this night, blah blah blah. Again, no good survivor player should ever be getting 2 tapped ever. Like that should never happen. Like this is like proper survivor play against this. The downs should take a long time no matter what. There should be no world where Knight gets a down in like Knight should never down a full health survivor in any less than like 30 seconds. Like if that ever happens, that's just insane. Like I don't know what's happening there. Like something really, really bad must have happened. So he's is he, you know, does he belong in C tier actually? Because he does still kind of force hits, right? Which is still pretty good. And like on top of that, he also does an okay job of like area control too, right? Like say you have somebody on a hook, you can kind of like send out guards to like harass gens and shit. Like there is a little bit of stuff you can do with that as well that makes him like at least like, yeah, I think I'll put him in C tier. I think I'll put him bottom of C tier. I don't think he's like he's probably even below Onryo. I don't think he's even above Onryo. Because like there is like a little bit, like he has like a pretty dog shit chase that takes a long time, but it does at least get pretty much guaranteed hits at some point. And also like the area control is solid, but again, it's not good. It's not good at the end of the day. Like he's not great. Skull Merchant, again, this is one of those ones where like if we were going based off like public matches, Skull Merchant would be S tier because, you know, everyone just fucking quits against her anyway. And even the people that don't quit against her, usually people don't know how to play against her. Realistically though, like assuming you don't get an insane map, like if you get like there's certain maps of Skull Merchant where she's nuts. Like if you play against Skull Merchant on like Hawkins or like Larry's or something like that, where she could really utilize her stealth, and also it's harder to like know where the drones are, she's actually kind of insane. But like assuming you're not on an indoor map, if you're on like any kind of like a decent outdoor map, she's honestly not good. She's really not. She's actually pretty bad. Like survivors, like survivors just have never really taken the time to learn how to counterplay her, which kind of makes sense because I feel like there's like fucking 50 lines of text you have to read just to figure out how to counterplay her. But realistically, like even her drones like getting scans mid chase and getting like, you can say she kind of gets like free damage mid chase. It's not even, I shouldn't even quote it. It is free damage. She does get free damage mid chase, right? Like if you're playing a loop, she can throw down a drone, and then you either have to stay at that loop and get scanned, which will eventually give you a claw trap that makes you broken, or you have to leave the tile where, you know, she'll probably catch up to you and get a hit or whatever, right? She basically can force at least one damage state. But the thing is that even when you have a claw trap in, and like you're getting hit by the hindered, it's not free even then. Like if you're at a safe pallet, you can still play a safe pallet against Skull Merchant. Even like a somewhat like unsafe pallet can still be like kind of like, you can still go for 50-50 wins, right? Like it's not necessarily like free downs. The Skull Merchant still has to earn it, and a good survivor player can still definitely put up a very, very good fight. And the chases are definitely not fast. That's for sure. Like the chases are not going to be fast at all against good players. There's no way. Again, kind of like Knight, 2 taps should never ever happen against a survivor that's even remotely aware. Like if you're one scan away from getting injured, you just fucking crouch walk near every single drone and you just basically force an M1 because you never allow 2-tap to happen. That being said, she still does have some area control. Her chase is still like slightly above average because she at least gets like the free damage, and she also gets like the hinder, you know, as well as the haste. That does help her a bit. So she does still have an above average chase. She still does have like minor area control, I guess. It's more of like an annoying kind of area control. And honestly, her stealth is actually like, I think, the most underrated part of her kit. Every time people talk about the problems of Skull Merchant, everyone talks about like the haste and everything, which don't get me wrong, I know the haste is annoying, but I think the undetectable is actually, I think, the most annoying part of her kit. It feels so like shoehorned in. Like, why is that even a thing? Why does she go stealth? Like, what the fuck? It doesn't even make any sense. Like, why? It's so dumb. And I feel like, again, if you're able to like utilize the stealth too, especially, like it actually could be pretty strong in a lot of scenarios, because she's also dead silent. She makes no sound. Like, for instance, if like a Pyramid Head is stealth, you'll still hear him dragging his gigantic fucking Buster Sword, right? Like, or like Demo, you'll hear like the fucking weird like otherworldly sounds, or, you know, you'll hear like a Nemesis stomping. Like, Skull Merchant is fucking silencio, bro. She is so quiet. So like the stealth is actually not horrible when you can use it too. So I feel like overall, I still think she belongs in like C tier somewhere. I'll put her like above Onryo. Like I think like right like here. Like again, still decent chase, all things considered. Stealth can be utilized in a good way. Her power is a bit of a pain in the ass and needs to be dealt with by the survivors in like a smart, intelligent way. They need to be careful about it. You do still kind of apply pressure by having drones down, even if it's like not a lot of pressure. And again, like the constant haste, the constant undetectable still does give you some benefits that other killers don't have. I think right around C tier is fine. Singularity's up next. Singe goes A tier. This is kind of weird because I feel like Singularity, if you don't run Soma Family Photo, is probably like B tier, maybe even lower. But I feel like this is going to be one of the few killers where I think I am going to assume you have Soma Family Photo every game. I'm going to assume that Knight has Map of the Realm every game. So if I'm going to assume that Knight has Map of the Realm every game, I'm going to assume that Soma Family Photo is in every game. And I think I'm going to put him low A tier. I feel like he's good. Like, he's very strong, right? And he's got like a very, very high skill ceiling, right? There's a lot of things you can do with this killer. There's a very, very high skill ceiling of things that you can do. Turret, like basically pod placements, how you play around the pods, things like the fucking EMP pod tech thing that makes you get like instant teleports. Just decision making throughout a match. Like, I feel like in a Singularity game against good players, it's like it's always a long game. There's always like 50,000 different important decision making moments where, like, if you make a bad decision, it's punishing. If you make a good decision, it can be good. There's a lot that goes into this killer. He's very hard to play correctly and well, but if you do, he is very strong. He's a very strong area control killer. He can be very, very threatening. The survivors have to be extremely careful playing against him, right? They have to play extremely coordinated. Like, he's one of those killers where, like, again, if he's like holding a gen setup or something and someone goes down in the gen setup, it's like, it's so hard to kind of come out of that scenario on top. And he just has a lot of like cross map pressure. Especially if you're able to stay on top of the EMPs too, right? Like, if the survivors ever get like a big lead on you on EMPs, then you're kind of going to be in trouble. But if you're constantly gooping people and constantly forcing EMPs out of them so that they never really have like a comfortable amount of EMPs on hand, then that also keeps them off gens a lot. And I feel like it's like this constant back and forth, like slugfest war of attrition with this killer. But he's got a lot of strength, man. I mean, when you have people stuck and you're able to teleport on them like nonstop, like that overclock haste with like the pallet breaking and everything is just so good, dude. Like, his chase can be so strong. There is obviously some things you can do in chase, right? It's not like his chase is so deadly that you're dead every single time, but like his chase is basically just like you pre-throw the pallet if you can, and if you aren't in a position to pre-throw, then you're fucked. And even then, you basically just have to sacrifice pallets and hope for the best. And even then, he's really, really good at like bailing from chase and going back to protect gens and kind of continuing that area control. And it's like this very brutal macro war of attrition. Singularity games they're wild, dude. They're played very like differently. Like, it kind of reminds you of Twins with like the level of macro that's required. It's kind of wild. But I think Singularity, especially when you're playing to win and playing around like setups and stuff, can be very, very strong. Probably like low A tier. Again, not unbeatable though. Not unbeatable. I think as long as the survivors are really careful, don't take any downs in bad areas. If they make sure to prioritize EMPs as much as they can, if they only tackle the gen setup that's being held while they're full health, you know, again, keeping up on EMPs and everything. If they play their chases real careful and don't make any like major fuck ups, you could still definitely beat a Singularity decently reliably, I guess. Especially on most maps. Like, again, it depends on the map too. Like, some maps are better than others. But yeah, he's definitely got the strength in his kit to be a major threat, to the point where I think he's definitely A tier. He's definitely not B tier. He's definitely good enough to be A tier. I just don't think he's enough. I don't think he's much of a threat as like these higher A tier killers, at least, though. He's not quite that good. I wish he was, but just not quite. Xeno's up next. Xenomorph has some like level of mobility and tracking with tunnels, right? Like, you have tunnels that you can use to get around the map, and also it kind of gives you this like loose tracking of seeing footsteps. Although that kind of has counterplay too, right? Like, if you know that the Xenomorph's in a tunnel, you can crouch walk and he won't see your footsteps. The tail attack is very, very strong, right? But it's not like ridiculously strong. It's like, I mean, it kind of reminds me of like Pyramid Head in a way, kind of. But it's not like absurd. I definitely think Xeno is the type of killer where, like, if you kind of get going and get snowballing, you can definitely get so far ahead that it's hard for the survivors to come back. But like, you shouldn't really be able to do that super reliably. Turrets are also a really good counter, right? Like, having good turret setup and having the survivors chase to the turrets is very, very strong. Double turret setups are disgusting. Like, if you're chasing a survivor and he runs to a double turret setup, you're fucked. You're fucked. Like, you literally, like, what do you do? Like, that chase is basically over. That chase is either A, it's over, or B, you have to accept the fact that you have to chase that killer for like 30 seconds or so as a 4.6 killer with no power, because yeah, you either get back in the tunnels and try to like get your power back, or you sit there and shimmy back and forth and destroy the turrets with your tail attack, or you eat the flame, get broken out, and then continue chasing. Either way, the chase is fucked. Either way, the chase is fucked if any of those happen. So like, turrets are still a really, really good counter to them. But I think without turrets, the power is really strong. I I think Xeno goes B tier somewhere. I think high B tier. I think Xeno goes maybe top of B tier. I feel like it's like around Slinger level of threat. Again, I think if you start popping off, like if the survivors just like lose a couple 50s early and chase, and you can kind of get some downs, you can kind of make it hard, right? Like if Xenomorph gets ahead, it's kind of hard to like set up turrets and stuff, right? Because like you're like, fuck, like people are dying, we gotta get gens done, right? But then if you take time to set up turrets, then gens are getting done. But if you're doing the gens and there's no turrets set up, which means all the other downs come in faster, there is like some, I wouldn't call it reliable, but there's things you can do in chase against Xeno that's kind of similar to like Pyramid Head, but like I guess a little bit better because Xeno can't hit you through solid walls. But I think a good Xenomorph player is honestly, I would say maybe pushing A tier, but not quite. I think top of B tier is probably right. Like you can maybe make an argument for pushing low A, but I don't know. Probably high B tier. I think high B tier is probably the better place for it. Chucky, this might be a hot take. This might be hot take number like 50 of this video. I don't know, but I think Chucky's S tier. I think Chucky is like unironically, Chucky might be above Bro. Would that be crazy? That would be crazy, right? This would be crazy. I mean, this for sure. I'm at least putting him here. Maybe? I don't know. Maybe though. No, I think the mobility from Blight is just too good. No. Okay, I was getting a little too crazy. Okay, sorry. You know what? I got a little out of hand. I'm sorry. I got kind of excited. You know, okay. He's not above Blight. But I do think Chucky is literally just like basically a better spirit right now. Like I feel like Chucky is so nuts right now. He's fucking insane. A good Chucky player, like there's so little you can do. Basically, all you can do is either use a God palette or try to play an unthrown palette, or you throw it and then you try to play it post throw, but you can never loop it. You can never loop a palette. Because if you loop a palette, he'll follow you around the corner and then just use his dash and then you get hit every time. Like, literally, you will not avoid... Like, if the Chucky player is good, you're not avoiding damage, bro. You're not. Unless it's, like, a really safe palette. And even then, even if it's a really safe palette, you're still playing a coin flip at best. You know what I mean? A good Chucky player is going to be getting damage on you off cooldown very, very often. He is ridiculously strong right now. And the only downfall he has is his lack of mobility. That's it. That's the only thing he doesn't have going for him. His chase is, in my opinion, better than Spirit's. Honestly, I think his chase is actually, this might be a crazy take. I think his chase is better than Blight's. I think he has a better chase than Blight. The only reason Blight's above him is because Blight does have the mobility to go with it, which, like, I don't think his chase is, like, significantly better than Blight's. I think it's only a little bit better than Blight's. But Blight has, like, the crazy mobility that kind of makes up for it. But yeah, I think he's better than Spirit and Chase. And I feel like he's just nuts. He's so fucking deadly. He also has stealth in his kit that helps too. The third-person camera also helps with a lot. You can do, you know, what I've heard people call as Chuck spotting, which is fucking great. It's like check spotting, but for Chucky. And there's just so much good things in his kit, and he's just so deadly, dude. Like, I'm sorry, but if you're getting chased by a good Chucky player, you're fucking dead, dude. You're fucking dead. You're absolutely dead. Like, there's no way. If you guys think he's not top 5, by all means, present me with some footage. Show me some games with a top-tier Chucky player against survivors and show me that he's not top tier. Show me. I would love to see it. I would love to see survivors consistently counterplay his power. If you guys are willing to show me that, feel free. I feel like, again, if I look at this tier list, if you guys are telling me that you can counterplay Chucky's power to the same level of these killers, by all means, show me. By all means, please show me. Like, there's no way, dude. There's no way. His power is nuts. It's so good. It's so good. So yeah, I'm pretty confident that Chucky is currently, like, probably number 4 in the game. He's very, very strong right now. Again, maybe it's a hot take, maybe it's not. I don't know, but he's very, very good. Dude's insane. I don't know. Again, I'm open to my mind being changed, but I'm feeling as of right now, I'm feeling very confident in that. Again, I think the only thing he has not going for him, he kind of reminds me of Nurse. Like, I was kind of tempted to put him above Blight because he reminds me of Nurse. I feel like you force hits almost as often as Nurse does. Almost. Like, kind of close to it, right? And again, the major downside to both of these killers is the mobility. I really am still thinking about this. I really am. I thought I moved on, but I'm really not. Like, you force hits so well. Because I feel like if Blight's above Chucky, then maybe Blight's just above Nurse, right? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe? I don't know, man. Maybe. I don't know. It's hard to say. I'll just leave him here for now. But honestly, these 3 killers in the middle of S tier, I feel like you can rearrange them however you want, and I honestly wouldn't feel crazy about it. I really wouldn't. Chucky's really strong right now, man. I don't know. I feel very strongly about that. Anyway, Unknown. Unknown is very, very good too. He's a bit of like a feast or famine type killer as well, right? Like, he's one of those killers where, like, if you're hitting your shots back to back to back to back, it's like a lot of pressure and you can do a lot with it. But also, like, you can definitely have, like, a prolonged chase as Unknown, right? Like, you can definitely get looped for a bit. His zoning is really good. Like, you can kind of, like, fake using your power and force the survivor into, like, you know, pathing in a weird way to try to avoid getting hit by it, just to then cancel it in M1. Like, you have, like, those kind of options that can kind of get you hits. Also, just using your power in cheeky ways can get you hits in a lot of scenarios. Like, his power is very versatile. There's a lot of different ways to use it. There's a lot of, like, threats that are there. On top of, like, the hallucination teleport, right? We didn't even talk about that. Like, the hallucination teleporting is crazy, too. Just for A, mobility, and B, for chase, right? Like, if you pop down a like, hallucination in a tile, that tile is basically dead for the survivor as long as that hallucination's there. Like, you just cannot loop it. The mobility of being able to teleport is nuts, just for general macro play. Your ability to pressure, like, things around the map. Like, we've seen so many games where, like, unknowns will, like, hook somebody, and they'll kind of, like, patrol the hook while just launching mortars at gens. And, like, it's kind of, like, artisty and the way that you're pressuring gens. It's like a weird mix of, like, artist and Huntress. Also, excuse me if you heard that burp kind of slipped out of me. I was trying to hold it in. Excuse me. Anyway, it's kind of like, it kind of reminds you of, like, Huntress and artist in a way, how you can, like, kind of pressure gens across the map, and if they're not careful, they can take damage. But, like, if they are careful, they can most likely avoid damage, but it's still, like, you know, you're still threatening them, and you're still either A, getting info, or B, getting them to temporarily let go of the gen, and you're still applying pressure, which is really good. So, yeah, I mean, I think he's just a solid A tier killer, man. He's just a solid A tier. I would put him, like, above Plague, below Wesker. I think that's where, well, maybe above Wesker. I think above Wesker, actually. Yeah, I think above Wesker. I think above Wesker seems right. Really good mobility, very solid above average chase. Maybe above Pinhead. This is hard. I feel like these killers are, like, so close in strength, man. It's so hard to decide this. I feel like I could put him anywhere mid-A and I would be happy with it, but just for funsies, I'm going to put him above Pinhead. I do think, like, the extra mobility helps him a lot. Like, that mobility is brutal. And, like, yeah, you can, like, get rid of the mobility, right? Like, you can, like, dispel it or whatever, but even then, you got to be so careful about when you're doing that, right? Like, you got to do that at, like, only at the very right moments, because if you dispel at a bad time and he teleports to it, that's an insta down, dude. Like, you get weakened and he's right on top of you, so he can M1 you, and his power's already off cooldown, so you're hit and you're weakened, and he's basically right on top of you, so he can then threaten you with his power, and you're almost just instantly two-tapped. So, like, even getting rid of his mobility is, like, super risky, because if you get caught out doing it, you're just insta-dead. So, yeah, I think I'll put Unknown high A tier, like, right here. Not quite better than Artist, and I think he's just a little less consistent than these two, to be honest. But I still think he's very, very strong. Like, I think a good Unknown game will look stronger than Artist and Oni, but I think he just will have bad games as well, where he'll look like he's, like, down here. But I think on average, he's probably, like, right here is where I'd put him. Vecna. Okay, Vecna's a weird one. I need to think this one out loud in my head, because I honestly don't know off the top of my head where I'd put him. Like, I'm leaning towards, like, low A, high B. But even then. Okay, let me think. He has all 4 of the spells. The spells have long cooldowns, right? Like, when you use a spell, it goes on cooldown for a while, and you become, and you kind of, like, lose that. Mage Hand is cheesy as fuck, and is, like, borderline free hits. Although, there is still kind of counterplay for Mage Hand. If you have enough distance on a pallet, and you can, like, really pre-throw it, then there is kind of counterplay to it in the sense that you can just, like, continue looping and get around a loop, especially depending on the loop's size, right? There's, like, sometimes where Mage Hand isn't a free hit, but Mage Hand is often a free hit. Flight of the Damned is honestly pretty avoidable if there's not elevation. I don't think Flight of the Damned. I think Flight of the Damned is by no means, like, a guaranteed hit. Fly is, like, good for mobility, and also the occasional mind game when it comes to, like, windows and stuff. But realistically, I don't think. I think Vecna's in a weird spot right now, because I think survivors are still kind of adapting to his kit, right? Like, I think people are still kind of learning. Like, for instance, I think Flight of the Damned is still getting damage way more than it should. Like, I really think that as survivors get more and more comfortable with Flight of the Damned, you're going to be able to, like, even the thing, like, for instance, what like, a lot of Vecna players do is they will spawn, because, like, Flight of the Damned, like, the skeletons will spawn, like, maybe, like, 4 meters in front of you. So if someone's looping something, especially if there's, like, a line of sight blocker, what Vecnas will do is they'll spawn Flight of the Damned on the other side of the wall, like, directly on top of the survivor. So, like, the survivor can't even really react, and they just instantly take damage. But realistically, if you know that Flight of the Damned is not on cooldown, like, if you haven't seen him use it in Chase yet, you honestly should just be, like, ready to pre-crouch. And, like, you should be, like, kind of ready for it. I honestly think Flight of the Damned gets damage way more than it should right now. Like, I don't think Flight of the Damned should be free damage at all. I think even in situations like that, survivors can kind of, like, pre-crouch a little bit here and there and just kind of, like predict it to avoid it. And Mage Hand is really the only one that is kind of free damage, and even that one's not necessarily free, right? It's, like, sometimes. realistically, I think a good Vecna player is going to be weaving in and out of his spells in a very unpredictable way. Like, I think as the time goes on, what's going to happen, what you're going to see over the next, like, couple months, I mean, you might see, like, balance changes too, but I think what you're also going to see is that good Vecna players are going to be the ones that basically don't use their powers in predictable ways, right? Like, if you're expecting a mage hand, they might throw out a fly, or they might throw out a fucking Flight of the Damned, right? Or if you're expecting Flight of the Damned, maybe that's when to throw out like a flight hand or like a mage hand or something, right? Like, I think trying to be unpredictable is the big thing, because I think a lot of, like, right now, I feel like when you go against Vecna, I feel like you almost know exactly what they're gonna do. Like, it doesn't really seem that hard, but I think that's gonna be like a kind of a gap that they get better at, where they kind of be more unpredictable. And yeah, okay, that is also true that, like, I think a window vault, if you have enough distance on a window vault, you can set up Flight of the Damned and it's free damage. You're not wrong about that. Yeah, that's also true. That's not true with pallets, but it is true with windows. Well, I guess pallet vaults is true. Yeah, that's actually a good point. Flight of the Damned can be free damage sometimes. But even then, I would say it's just sometimes. It's, like, not super reliable. And even that's kind of hard to time. So he's kind of hard to play. I think there's a lot that goes into him and playing him correctly and getting the damage when you can. I also think fucking up with him is very punishing, right? Like, for instance, if you use Flight of the Damned and Mage Hand, which are basically, like, your two major damage-dealing abilities, like, obviously Fly has, like, some potential to be lethal, but, like, very little. If you use Flight of the Damned and Mage Hand in a chase and don't get the down, dude, you have, like, no power for, like, 38 seconds? What's the cooldown? 38 or something? 38, I think? It's, like, a long cooldown. Like, that's a long time to just be a regular killer with no chase power, right? Like, that's a lot. But at the same time, there is still so much going for him, dude. Dispelling Orb is really good for even just information gathering. You can, like, yeet it, like, down a line of generators to figure out if any of those gens are being worked on. Like, even the chests that they want to search is like extra time off gens that they might be doing. If a mimic comes into play, they're kind of a nice little RNG addition that gives you some tracking and even maybe damage. Probably not, but, you know, mostly just tracking. The actual magical items aren't that big of a deal when it comes to counterplay. Like, they don't really do that much. So, like, realistically, I don't even know. Like, proper survivor play might be very rarely even searching chests, honestly, because the magic items, aside from, like, the Mage Hand one, like the Mage Hand one and maybe Flight of the Damned are the only ones that really do much. The other ones don't really matter that much. So yeah, I don't know. I still think he has a lot in his kit, right? There's a lot there, and there is still a lot of potential for outplay with all the things he had with all the things he had in his kit. I think clever use of your power too, like Flight of the Damned with elevation. Like, if they go up minor elevation and they use Flight of the Damned, they can't crouch it. That's really good. I think clever use of your power is going to open him up for even more potential mind games too. And truly, like, again, I think he's just very threatening. I think this is kind of a side note to his strength, but I think they designed him in a way that's actually really sick. He feels like a cool spellcaster, right? It feels like when you're in chase, you have this spell book of all these things you can use, and you're trying to, like, figure out in this situation what's the best one and how you can catch people off guard. It's neat. It's really neat. I like it. I think I'm gonna put him... It's hard because I feel like as people adjust to him, this might change. But right now, at this exact moment, I think if survivors are playing properly against them, I'm talking all 4 survivors. I think a big problem with people judging Vecna right now is, again, I think most public lobbies don't consist of 4 survivors that all are good against him. That's very rare to see. But I think when that happens, I think he's like B tier. I think he's like B tier, man. I think he's like mid B tier. I think he's like here-ish. Somewhere around here. Somewhere around mid B. I don't know exactly where, but somewhere around mid B. Because, again, like, you have, like, 2 spells that are mainly lethal, and if you don't kill them with those 2 spells, you're literally 4.6 for, like, 30 seconds, which is fucking rough. Like, that's rough, dude. That's very rough. Yeah, you get info. Yeah, there's all this other stuff. Yeah, maybe you could just get the kill with those 2 spells or whatever, but I don't think you can get kills with the spells reliably enough when the survivors know what they're doing. Again, that's a very important thing to note here. When the survivors know what they're doing. And I'm talking all 4 survivors. Because, again, a lot of survivors that don't know what they're doing will just get fucking 2-tapped, right? They'll get, like, hit by Flight of the Damned, freak out, run to a pallet, and then you'll Mage Hand the pallet, and then they just die, you know? Like, that happens very often. But, like, that shouldn't really be happening to good survivors very often. Like, that should happen very, very rarely. So I think, realistically, you should be having to fight for your downs, but... Again, like, I think kind of like the B tiers. It's like you shouldn't be having to fight for your downs, and it should be like a very good skill matchup. But if you get the better of the survivors, you can definitely start snowballing in a big way, just like these killers. But at the same time, the survivors realistically can stop you from snowballing just through good play, just like these killers. So I think he fits in great here. Like, honestly, like right in the middle. Wow, I didn't even notice that, but he's kind of right dead center in the middle of the killers. Oh, good job, behavior. Good job. I think this killer ends up being right smack in the middle. Well done. Well done, behavior. I mean, I think Mage Hand is still fucking annoying and needs to be less cheesy, but like balance-wise, touche. Touche. Balance-wise, it's not bad, honestly. Let's say okay. Maybe fighting against demons, not to say that most survivors are bad. Yeah, I mean, it's true. Like, it makes sense, though. Like, I hate saying it because I feel like I sound like an egotistical asshole. Like, there's no way for me to say it without sounding like I'm like this, like, fucking big ego douchebag. It's like, everyone's bad at the game, blah, blah. But realistically, like, DBD is not a super competitive game, right? Like, the vast majority of DBD players don't even take it remotely seriously and call it, like, a fucking party game. You know what I mean? And even the people that do take it seriously, a lot of them, like, again, even if you want to take DBD seriously, to actually be a really good survivor, you have to know all the nuances of all these killers. Like, there's like 30 fucking killers, bro. So you gotta know, like, all the ins and outs of Skull Merchant, right? Like, oh, that you can crouch inside her drones, and also she can get undetectable, and also, like, if you're one scan away from being claw trapped, you gotta make sure you crouch and not get scanned, or else you're gonna get two tapped, and blah, 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 blah. You gotta know about Doctor, and like, when he shocks you, that you can keep circling around objects, you can tie two loops together, and maybe you can body block for your teammates, blah, 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 blah. Like, every killer has, like, this, like, fucking massive paragraph of, like, things that you need to know to truly be a good survivor. And I think a lot of people underestimate how hard it is to be a good survivor. Like, being a genuinely good survivor in DBD is incredibly hard. You need to have such a vast knowledge of every killer power and how to play around it, on top of being just good at, like, normal chasing, right? Like, again, there's so many killers in this list that I said, like, Vecna was one of them, where I said, like, oh yeah, because if you do this, if you do X, Y, and Z, then you end up as a killer with no power. You're just a 4.6 killer with no power. But what's funny is that just a 4.6 killer with no power will still kill most survivors, because again, even just that individual skill of being able to loop a 4.6 killer with no power is something that not your average survivor isn't even necessarily super great at, right? Like, that's a hard thing to do in itself, right? Just looping a 4.6 killer. I mean, go play 1v1s with people in the 1v1 ladder, and trust me, you'll see. Like, it's hard sometimes to just play against a good killer player. Controlling an M1 killer can sometimes be really hard. So, like, that plus the in-depth knowledge of killer powers, like, I promise I'm not trying to be, like, mean and egotistical when I'm saying that, like, your average survivor player isn't good. It's just, I think that people underestimate how hard it is to be good. I don't think I'm exceptionally good. I have 12,000 hours. I've been doing 1v1s. I've been looking into comp DBD. I've been, like, really, like, trying to be good at this game. I've been putting in a lot of effort, and I have 12,000 hours. And I would argue that I'm just, like, a pretty good survivor. I don't think I'm, like, insane, right? Like, that goes to show how fucking hard it is. It is hard, dude. It is hard to be good at this game as survivor. So, yeah. All right, guys, that's it for the tier list. Hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed all my ranting, and hopefully you got something out of it. Thank you guys for watching. And make sure to sub, like the video, all that jazz. And I will see you guys next time. I'm out of here. See ya. I'll take care. See ya. See you later. See ya.